Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it.
They say that life is striped like a zebra. Sooner or later, the black strip, which consists of difficulties and trials, is replaced by a white one. Then everything works itself out. Fate, as if gives a break, allows you to solve the accumulated problems. But you should not relax, because the white stripe after some time will become black again. Some people are lucky. Their life is not a zebra, but a rainbow, in which there is a yellow strip of happiness and red, filled with love, and green full of peace and tranquility. Sometimes it happens that there comes a blue or violet streak. A person is a little worried, but tense, and here in his life again all yellow, red, and orange. And in Veronica's life for a long time there have been no white stripes, let alone colored ones. Her life was black and gray. For some reason, the woman thought about it, looking at the white ceiling of the hospital room. The last thing Veronica remembered before she fell into the long tunnel, at the end of which she saw a bright light, a woman slapping her face. "Don't pass out. Don't close your eyes," the stranger was saying, and Veronica was losing consciousness. Darkness, viscous, like tar, enveloped her. The woman realized that now this black slurry would suck her in and the end would come. It would bring relief, transport her to another place where Veronica would become a disembodied creature. Only her soul would remain pure, bright, but so wounded, crippled by the change of black and gray stripes. A tunnel. Veronica stepped into it. She wanted to go into the light, feeling that it was there that she would become easy and free. Suddenly, a figure in a white hoodie appeared at the end of the tunnel. The figure raised his hand, and in a loud, almost thunderous voice said, "Go back. It is not yet time for you to walk down this corridor to the end." The figure in the white hoodie disappeared. Veronica heard other voices. They sounded as if from far away, blurred, echoing in her head. Was she regaining consciousness? No. It's weird. Her vitals are slowly returning to normal. It's about time. The surgery was a success. You're lucky you didn't kill her on the operating table. If you got the diagnosis right, everything would have gone the best way possible and you wouldn't have had to take any risks. You're gonna tell me what to do. You've been working in our hospital for a year without a week. Veronica tried to open her eyes. A man in a white coat was leaning over her. She focused her gaze on his neatly trimmed beard, then shifted to his eyes. They were dark, framed by thick lashes, radiating warmth. "Can you hear me?" the man asked. "Yes," the woman said with difficulty. "Where am I?" "You are in the hospital. You had an operation. You were in critical condition, but now everything is fine. I'll get the nurse. Lie down and rest." The man disappeared from Veronica's sight. No, it was not the man in the hoodie who had chased Veronica out of the tunnel, but it looked very much like him. The woman closed her eyes again. After a few minutes, she felt the touch of someone's hands. Opening her eyes, the woman saw a young girl in a pale pink nurse's uniform. "Hush, hush, I'll just put an IV in," she said in a quiet, gentle voice, inserting a syringe into the catheter on Veronica's arm. "It's okay, don't worry. You're in the hospital now, they'll help you here." "Thank you." The patient barely uttered and fell into a deep sleep. The black streak in Veronica's life began on the day of her birth. The young mother, about 16 years old, was brought to the hospital by ambulance. She was screaming, even swearing in pain. "Ah, get it out of me. I'm in pain," screamed the woman in labor. "Why are you yelling?" the midwife said sternly, checking whether the girl's uterus had opened enough. "Everyone gives birth, and you will give birth. Why are you yelling? You've already raised the whole hospital with your screams." "Okay, let's push." "All men are assholes," yelled the woman in labor, not intending to push. She seems to have no idea, being in a state of alcoholic intoxication. "Listen, say thank you that we took you drunk. Come on, don't yell. Help me. Push, come on," said the midwife in a loud, bassy voice. She was quickly put on a drip. A minute later came strong contractions. Without stopping screaming, the girl gave birth to a baby. The baby was intercepted by a pediatrician and taken away. The girl was born healthy, 8 points on the APGAR scale. Normal mothers do not always give birth to children with such indicators, shook her head midwife, looking at the newborn girl in a cuvette, wrapped in diapers. And this juvenile alkie, who had gotten a baby from who knows who, was walking around the whole pregnancy, and the girl is a miracle. You don't say, agreed the nurse, and she is lying there, eyes flapping, not crying almost at all. So calm. What will happen to her? The midwife thought for a moment. Tomorrow, when this childish whore sobered up, I'll slip her a waiver. Let her sign it and get out of the maternity hospital, she said. She has no test. She was not observed in the women's clinic. Here we even took her blood before delivery, did not have time. What if she gives us some kind of disease? The whole town would be in an uproar. It's a pity for the girl, said the nurse sadly. No pity, rudely interrupted her midwife. We have waiting lists for adoption. Let her better be brought up and raised by kind strangers than by such a mother. Katie and Victor couldn't have a baby. All attempts ended with the same one strip on the test. The couple even decided to enter an IVF program. Katie had 4 implants, but all were unsuccessful. She was completely exhausted from taking hormones, weakened physically and mentally. Victor, why the Lord is so unfair to us? The woman wrung her hands in despair. Alcoholics, drug addicts, single mothers without means of subsistence give birth to children like kittens. And we have a full house and a good income, and we cannot give life to a baby. The husband had no answer. He only calmed his wife, stroked her hair, pressing her to his chest. Victor really wanted children. They dreamed about it from the first day of married life. He well remembered how at the wedding guests threw money into pink and blue onesies, competing whether a girl or a boy would collect more. The pink pants won, so the first newlyweds will have a girl. The guests rejoiced. In time, the husband received from the factory, where both spouses worked, a spacious, bright 2-room apartment in a new building. They undertook to furnish it, strived to grab the best furniture, stood in line for a TV, refrigerator, such wall. They had everything, but only the baby was missing. Ekaterina from the 3rd entrance has a child every year, her wife said. They run around the yard unattended, dressed like ragamuffins, barefoot rubber boots in October. Victor looked out the window. Katerina's children, about whom his wife was talking, were playing in the yard. They did indeed look dirty, unkempt, wandering around in a puddle. No one looked after the children. Once in a while, one of the mothers sitting on a bench with strollers shouted, "Come on, get away from the puddle. The water is cold. You will freeze and get sick." However, the children were not stopped by the instructions of strange aunts. They had their own uncomplicated entertainments. It was already dark. On the benches, swings, and in the sandbox was empty, and Catherine's children were still in the yard. His wife was right. It was very unfair that their well-to-do family would have no children, and those who lived on 1-child allowance, drank regularly, and gave birth every year had 7 at home. But he and Kathy could make happy some child, doomed from birth by a negligent mother to a difficult existence without the usual joys of childhood. Kathy. Victor put his arm around his wife's shoulders. Let's take the baby from the orphanage. I won't be able to love someone else's child, his wife replied quietly. You can, my dear. Your heart will be warmed by the understanding of what happiness you gave to the abandoned baby, from the fact that you were able to change his fate, written on the birth. It was not the first time Victor and his wife started talking about adoption. You and I are almost 40 years old. Now we are still full of strength and can bring up a child. But another 5 to 7 years will pass, and even this chance to miss. Well, imagine if we delay and take the baby later. By the time it will be necessary to take him to the 1st grade, you and I will be over 50. We or other parents will consider us grandparents, not mom and dad. And a child needs strong parents who can teach him how to ride a bicycle, take him to the sea, and race against the clock. Katie thought. Immersed in her own suffering, she had hardly noticed how Victor was suffering. Now she realized how selfish it was, but she still felt sorry for herself. After all, it is she, not her husband, who kills her health year after year on hormones, not Victor. For her, the words in vitro fertilization had become more than just the name of a procedure that would make their family happy. All night Katie couldn't sleep a wink. She thought about her husband's offer to take in and raise someone else's baby. Despair increasingly gripped her. It might have been easier for Katie if the doctors had made a clear diagnosis and written infertility clearly on her outpatient chart. But they didn't tell her that. The woman's tests were normal. Nothing indicated she was sick with anything. Victor is right. We can't wait any longer, or we'll be alone in the world when we're old, Katie finally decided. Victor and Katie were still walking hesitantly towards the baby's home. But when they entered the room where the abandoned babies were, their mood changed dramatically. Their faces showed joy, an expression of emotion, some tenderness, which is characteristic of parents of firstborn children. In the crib, holding on to the partition, stood a boy. He looked no more than a year old. In the other crib lay a twin. What kind of mother would give up twins? Katie said to her husband, and next to her in a pink diaper, a baby girl was quietly quivering. She had huge eyes, just bottomless, filled with the blue of the spring sky. Victor, look how pretty she is. The man came closer. How old is the girl? He asked the nurse who accompanied them. Almost a month, she answered. Why was she abandoned? Is she sick? It seemed to him that the girl looked quite healthy. She's perfectly healthy. She even scored high on the APGAR scale at birth, the nurse assured him. And why she was abandoned, they'll tell you if you decide to take her in. You know, very calm baby, almost does not cry, eats well, patiently waits for the staff to change diapers. I come to see her, and she is always happy. She can already smile. At home, Victor and Katie talked about the 1-month-old girl all the time. She was so much in their hearts that the next morning they were in the office of the head of the infant home. Why don't you want an older baby? A woman with glasses asked, flipping through papers in a folder. We want a baby to form its character, to bring it up from scratch, Victor said. I see. Everyone wants to pretend that they gave birth themselves. Well, do the paperwork. The woman handed Victor a sheet of paper with a long list of things they must provide to get a girl. As soon as everything is ready, come back. But please don't stall for time. There are always long lines for newborn babies. I took you in only because my good friend from the factory called and asked for you. I couldn't refuse him. Using all his connections, Victor was able to quickly overcome bureaucratic obstacles and collect the documents to adopt the girl. Every evening after work, they rushed to the stores. They had to buy a crib, a stroller, things for the little girl, as well as toys, pacifiers, feeding bottles. Victor even grabbed a potty and when at the cash register his wife looked questioningly at the red object. He answered, for growing up. Katie smiled. The potty wouldn't be needed for a long time, but her husband loved shopping at Children's World. I will not give you any special information, just we do not know much. Her mother was admitted on the night of March 2nd. She was drunk. She behaved inappropriately, and we had a hard time getting her to give birth using stimulant medication. The girl's mother was only 16 years old. In fact, she was still a child herself. Nothing is known about the father. Most likely it was some kind of casual sexual intercourse and a hitch due to the girl's inexperience. She signed the waiver without regret. She has not returned to pick up the child for this month, so I think you have nothing to worry about. As practice shows, such moms don't often look for their abandoned children afterward. That's quite a story, Victor said, dumbfounded. Yes, it happens, unfortunately, said the headmistress, adjusting her glasses on the bridge of her nose. There was a knock. The door opened and a nurse came in with a baby girl in her arms. The girl was wrapped in a pink envelope with lace. And here is your girl, said the headmistress cheerfully. Except Daddy. Victor took the girl in his arms as if she were a jewel. He was afraid to even breathe on her. Katie stood beside him and smiled. Their dream with Victor came true. Now they have a child, a daughter, Veronica. At home, the new parents could not move away from the crib, where their daughter was peacefully sleeping. They admired the baby and were absolutely happy. We will do everything for her, Victor said dreamily. When the time comes, we'll give her to the best school. I'll take care of it. Then she will go to the institute, get a good profession, and then get married and give us grandchildren. Oh, you're dreaming. Katie laughed softly. We'll have to raise them first. Victor embraced his wife and kissed her tenderly. We have dreamed about it for so long. Veronica grew up surprisingly calm, obedient, and neat girl. she almost did not cause difficulties to her parents. Even in her childhood years, almost never got sick. She could catch a cold, as many children at that age, but she recovered quickly. After graduating from kindergarten, the girl was placed in a lyceum with advanced study of foreign languages. She studied well, pleased her parents with excellent marks, victories in Olympiads. In turn, Veronica loved her mom and dad very much. They were not just parents for her, but real friends. Kathy and Victor took their daughter to the sea every year. Sometimes they stayed not in hotels, but in boarding houses and sanatoriums, where the whole family underwent therapeutic procedures. Mud and Brahman baths are very useful for the organism, Kathy told her daughter when they lay together, covered with black sludge and wrapped in polyethylene on neighboring couches. Not only do they boost your overall immunity, but they make many diseases disappear. All this is understandable, Mom, Veronica replied, but it's still unpleasant when your whole body is covered in this mud. If my classmates could see me now, and you do not worry, they will not see. Veronica did not like to go to the procedures. She liked to splash in the sea, but the girl did not want to upset her parents, so she did everything as they said. When the girl went to the first grade, Mom and Dad gave Veronica a gold chain with a pendant in the form of a heart. She liked this piece of jewelry very much. Kissing her father and mother in turn, Veronica assured her parents, "I will wear it always. It will be my talisman." Her father cut out a large photo of his and Nina's image from a large photo in the shape of the pendant and put it inside the heart. "This way we will always be there for you," he told his smiling daughter. Kathy set a rich table, and Veronica's friends from school came to visit. The girl was glowing with happiness as she received the presents. They chirped merrily, eating the treats that her mother had so carefully prepared all day, and then danced to the tape recorder in the living room and drank tea and cake. The next morning, Katie didn't feel well. She was feeling very dizzy. The woman looked at herself in the mirror over the bathroom sink. Her face had taken on a grayish appearance. There were circles under her eyes, and she felt very dizzy. Overcoming the malaise, the woman went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Her husband and daughter needed to get ready for work and school. She poured milk into a pot, took out a box of oat groats to boil porridge. The smell of boiling milk hit her nose. Katie barely had time to run to the bathroom. She had been sick all day and had to take an afternoon off from work. Lying in bed, Kathy thought, "I should get a checkup. Maybe I have some bad disease. Cancer is all over the place these days. If we can find it in time, we can try to cure it." With these thoughts, she fell asleep. Coming from work, Victor found his wife in bed, worried. "What's wrong, my dear?" he asked her, carefully adjusting the blanket. "I felt unwell and dizzy, so I asked her to stay at home," she answered quietly. "Don't worry, it will soon pass." A few days later, Victor brought her to the building of the polyclinic. "I'm going to work. As soon as you pass the examination, be sure to call me," asked her husband, escorting his wife to the entrance. "I will be worried, do you hear?" "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Kathy opened the door of the clinic building and disappeared behind it. Having taken all the tests, having passed the examination, the woman calmly waited for her turn to see the doctor. Although she tried to appear calm in front of her husband, Kathy was very anxious. She was overcome with sad, sometimes frightening thoughts. If I'm terminally ill, if I'm going to die soon, how will Veronica be left alone with Victor? She thought, and that made her chest feel tight. When it was Katie's turn, the woman slowly entered the doctor's office. Behind the desk sat a gray-haired woman. The doctor had obviously worked at the hospital for a very long time. Her face was kind, radiant. "Have a seat," the doctor invited. Katie sat down on the chair, looked carefully at the woman in the white coat, waiting for a disappointing verdict. "Your tests do not cause me concern," the doctor began the conversation. "But why did I start to feel so bad so suddenly?" Katie did not understand her reassuring tone. "It's very simple," answered the doctor, looking at the patient. "You're pregnant." Katie felt dizzy and her eyes became hazy. "You don't feel well," the doctor worried. She poured water from a carafe into a glass and handed it to Katie. The woman drank some. "It can't be. It can't be. You're not old, of course, but you haven't lost your fertility. You have a husband, and I suppose you sleep in the same bed with him without denying him what any man needs. Why are you surprised?" Kathy thought about it and decided to share her innermost feelings with the doctor. You see, my husband and I couldn't have children for a long time. We tried everything. I even underwent 4 IVF treatments, but the results were nil. Desperate, we took a baby girl from the orphanage. Now she's 7 years old. We bring her up like our own. We love her with all our hearts. You and your husband are very good, praised Kathy, gray-haired woman. To make an abandoned child happy, to give him a full-fledged family and care is a very noble deed. But I assure you, you're 6 weeks pregnant. How can that be? Katie asked, perplexed. Why are you surprised? There is no diagnosis of infertility in your chart. The doctor got up from the table and approached the patient. You see, it doesn't happen often, but it's happened in my practice over the years. For some reason, God doesn't give 2 people who love each other children. Why? That's for him to know. And when he sees that you have become caring parents for the child left without a mom and dad, he changes his decision. As if blessing you, he gives you your own baby, hoping that you will not abandon the girl you adopted. It happens, believe me. On the way home, Katie thought about how she would break the news to her husband. On the one hand, she felt joy that she would finally be able to be a real mother, not an adoptive one, to give birth to her baby, to experience true motherhood. On the other hand, the news of the pregnancy still seemed incredible to her. To Kathy's surprise, her husband didn't lose his mind at the joyous news. He was calm, even thoughtful, when his wife told him the results of the examination. I'm an engineer, dear, he said. I'm used to believing clear data, seeing a clear picture of what's going on, understanding cause and effect. I don't need to talk about the fact that someone up there for many years did not give us children, and when we raised someone else's girl in care and love, he decided to enrich us with his own child. I don't believe in such tricks. Katie didn't understand why Victor's voice sounded so alien, and he was comparing everything that had happened in his past. You were the one who didn't want to take the baby out of the orphanage, he said suddenly. Or maybe you just didn't want children at all. Maybe all the time that I dreamed of having a son or daughter, you took some drugs that interfered with my plans. Victor's wife looked at her husband in amazement. She stopped to understand anything. Did her husband think that she was taking birth control pills on purpose to avoid getting pregnant? It didn't make sense to her. What are you saying, Victor? Katie was outraged. I wanted a baby just as much as you did. You saw me. I went to IVF. I took hormones, but nothing worked. How do I know? Maybe you took some drugs to prevent the egg from taking root. Her husband's words hit the woman's mind like a hammer. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had never seen her husband so angry, so distant, so distrustful of her. Katie sank down in her chair, covered her face with her hands. She cried quietly, and Victor didn't even try to comfort her. Suddenly, Veronica entered the kitchen. From the expression on her face, it was clear that the girl had heard everything. For about 3 minutes, she stood silently looking at her mother and father, and then quickly went out, closing the door behind her. In the morning at breakfast, everyone was silent. Veronica had hardly slept. The news that she was not related to her parents was a revelation to her, full of horror, disappointment, resentment. It was hard for her to accept that her real mother had just thrown her out of her life. Veronica didn't blame Katie and Victor for anything. She loved them with all her heart. She had never felt their indifference to her life. She had never been scolded or punished, but she was not their own. Victor was tormented by his conscience. Having spent a sleepless night, he tossed in bed and thought that he had done a very cruel thing to his wife, accusing her of not wanting to have children. A man with a pragmatic mind, a mathematician by education, he did not believe in miracles. But the fact remains that he will be the father of his own child. It was confirmed by the results of tests, which he saw on the bedside table in the bedroom. And also the diagnosis, 6-7 weeks pregnant, and the pregnancy card registered to his wife. He should rejoice and forget about all the hard feelings. He should also apologize to Katie. And Kathy herself was in a state of prostration. She was offended. Never had a woman felt such resentment toward her husband. To accuse her of taking special drugs so that a child would never come into their family. There was no way she could expect such a thing from him. On the way to work, they dropped Veronica off at the Lyceum. "Good luck, daughter," said the father. The word daughter cut a sharp knife through the girl's heart. "Sorry, I can't pick you up. I'll be late at work today. I'll get there. She couldn't say daddy. She got out of the car and walked in the direction of the Lyceum. The husband and wife drove to work in silence. Finally, Victor made up his mind and spoke first. I'm sorry, Kathy. I don't know what happened to me yesterday. The news of your pregnancy came as a shock to me. He stopped the car at an intersection, a traffic signal glowing red ahead. Victor took his wife's hand. I am very happy about this news. Now we will have 2 children in our family. It's happiness. Will you forgive me, my love? Katie looked into her husband's eyes. She had never loved anyone as much as she loved this man who was dear to her heart. The woman said quietly, yes. He looked at her with loving eyes, moved closer and kissed her tenderly. From behind came the honking of automobile horns. The traffic light had long since turned green. Katie had a scheduled cesarean section, ordered by her doctor for medical reasons. On the appointed day, the house had been in turmoil since the morning of the appointment. Katie was visibly nervous, and Victor held her pack. The bag of items for the trip to the maternity hospital was already in the hallway. Stop being so nervous, dear. Everything will be fine, he reassured his wife. Do not worry. Think only about our baby. Do you think a lot of women give birth at that age? Katie worried. What if something goes wrong? What could go wrong? Victor took her by the shoulders and looked into her eyes. There will be doctors near you. They are specialists. They know how to behave in any situation. Your panic is only hurting the baby and yourself. But Katie had a bad feeling. Her lower abdomen began to ache. She leaned against the wall in the hallway, closed her eyes. If I die, promise me you'll take care of our boy, she said softly. What nonsense, Katie, Victor shrieked indignantly. Come on, tell me why all of a sudden you have to die. Just promise, he asked his wife. To reassure his wife, Victor assured her, I promise, everything you hear, I promise you that I will always take care of our child, you and Veronica. They left the apartment, began to slowly descend the stairs from the 4th floor. Veronica walked behind, carrying the bag with her mother's things. Today, her father would not drive her to the Lyceum. She had to take her mother to the maternity hospital in time. Veronica took public transportation herself. She understood how worried her parents were and didn't resent them. Ever since she found out that she was not a native in the family, she always wanted to ask who her real parents were. One day, she even had a confidential conversation with her father. Victor, as in childhood, sat her on his lap, hugged her. You are the most dear to me and my mom. We love you very much. Have we ever given you a reason to doubt that? No, of course not, answered the girl. Then let's close the subject. Time passed. The topic was closed, but memory cannot be reshaped. Pull out and throw in the trash can some unpleasant information. Therefore, Veronica always remembered that she was taken from the orphanage and adopted as a baby. But she chased these thoughts away, which made it hard to get ready for classes. In the evening, her father came home very late. He was as gloomy as a cloud. Veronica ran to the kitchen to heat up dinner for him. While Mom was in the hospital, she should take care of Dad, feed him after a day's work. Victor took a bottle of vodka out of his bag, turned to the wall-mounted cabinet, took out a shot glass, poured it all the way to the rim. Veronica looked at her father in surprise. He could afford to drink wine, but usually it was during vacations or holidays. But in the middle of the work week, and even alone, that never happened. She sliced cucumbers and tomatoes, put a plate on the table, sliced the bread. The cutlets rumbled in the skillet, warmed up. Having put them on a plate, she sat down on a chair and looked at her father in silence. One by one, he knocked back the shot glasses, put his fist to his nose, and inhaled loudly. Dad didn't touch the fresh vegetables or the cutlets. We don't have a mom anymore, Veronica, the father said, and tears streamed down his face. The girl looked at the man incomprehensibly. She had never seen her father cry. He had always been strong and cheerful, but now he looked like a small, defenseless child who had been hurt very badly. She got up and walked over to her father and hugged him from behind, wrapping her arms around his neck, pressing herself against him with her whole body. We will never see her again, sobbed Victor. Her heart couldn't withstand the anesthesia. There was still heavy bleeding. It was impossible to save our mom. That's what the doctor said. Large tears rolled out of Veronica's eyes. She felt sorry for everyone. She felt sorry for Daddy, who was so worried. Pity her mom, who had raised her in love and care all these years. With her almost adult, but in fact, still childish mind, she realized that grief had come to their family. When Veronica woke up in the morning and walked into the kitchen, her father was sitting in the same position as she had left him. There was an empty bottle on the table. Victor had been up all night. When he saw that his daughter was awake, he made his way to the bathroom. The man took a shower, shaved, tried to tidy up. Then he called work. He was given a week's vacation at his own expense so Victor could bury his wife. "I'll call your class teacher and tell her you won't be in today," he said quietly to his daughter as she put a cup of coffee and a plate of sandwiches in front of him. "Why?" the girl asked. "We have to go to the maternity hospital, get some documents and take the baby diapers, milk formula, some other things." He took out of his pocket a sheet of paper with a list of necessary things for the baby, which he was given in the maternity hospital. The news of her mother's death was so shocking to Veronica that she forgot to ask her father what happened to her newborn brother. It turns out the boy is alive. She has a little brother now. Veronica should try to make it easier for her father, should help him bring up his son. After stopping by several stores and a pharmacy where they bought diapers, feeding bottle, pacifier, baby powder, and formula, they drove to the maternity hospital. The bag of items was picked up by a nurse at the emergency room. The father made a phone call, talked to someone, and they were allowed to walk down the long hospital corridor, having been given white gowns and shoe covers. Victor and Veronica looked at the baby through the glass of the box room. "Daddy, he's so tiny," Veronica said. The man hugged his daughter, pulled her close. "Come on, let's think of a name for him," he said. "Maybe Harvey?" the girl asked. Harvey it is. Harvey is a good name." A few days later, Kathy's funeral was held. At the factory, the father was given financial aid so that he could organize everything honorably. The man never shed another tear. Even at the cemetery, when everyone around him was weeping and wailing, he stood silent and stone-faced. Only when they began to nail the coffin lid, he couldn't stand it and walked away down the cemetery alley. And a few days later, they gave Harvey to them. Veronica and Daddy brought the baby home. There were 3 of them again in that large, beautifully furnished apartment. Only instead of Mom, there was a baby who was always screaming at night. Coming from work, the father drank, then spent a little time with the baby, went to bed. Veronica got up at night to her crying brother, rocked him to calm him in her arms, prepared formula, fed him and put him to sleep again. The boy woke up every 2 hours. Veronica did not get enough sleep. The first year of caring for her brother was very hard for her. And when Harvey started to walk, the worries increased. He ran around the apartment, opened cupboards, climbed into electrical outlets. Veronica had to keep an eye on her brother at all times. When Harvey was 3, he was placed in kindergarten. It became Veronica's responsibility to take the boy to and bring him back. Seeing how she returns, leading her brother by the hand, neighbors on the bench at the entrance whispered, "Pity the girl, at such a young age, she should have gone out with girlfriends," and she replaced the boy's mother. And Veronica greeted politely and tried not to listen to the gossipers' gossip. The boy grew up, a lot of pranks, grew up naughty. The lack of parental upbringing had an impact. The father almost never practiced with his son. Every time Victor looked at Harvey, every feature on the child's face reminded him of his beloved wife. The man began to drink often, trying to drown his sorrow in a shot of alcohol. Sometimes a neighbor in the stairwell asked Veronica, "You could not pick up from the garden, am I, Archie? I do not have time for anything at all, and still need to cook dinner. Soon my husband will return from work hungry." It wasn't difficult for Veronica. What difference does it make to take 1 or 2 children from the garden? She always agreed, and eventually the neighbor sat on her neck. Now Veronica not only picked Archie up from the garden, but also walked with him on the playground in the yard, and sometimes took him to her house, because the neighbor did not return from the store for a long time. The woman always apologized and thanked Veronica. "Oh, Veronica, what would I do without you?" she would say. And then she would add, "But it's not hard for you. If there's 1, there's 2. You still take care of Harvey, so you can take care of my Archie." It wasn't hard for Veronica, But at the end of the quarter, after school, the class teacher asked her to stay behind. "Your grades are very bad," Veronica said sternly. "Teachers complain that you often do not do your homework, almost do not prepare for exams, do not take practice tests. How do you plan to enter the institute?" "I'll fix everything," Veronica promised, and the teacher only shook her head. She knew about the situation in the girl's family, sympathized, but studies must come first. That's what the class lady thought. One day, Veronica took the boys from kindergarten and led them home. In her right hand was the palm of Archie's hand, and her left hand held tightly, constantly trying to break free Harvey. "You can't run away," my sister told my brother. "You see how many cars are around, and what if you get hit by a truck? Can you imagine how scary that would be?" "I'm not scared," Harvey argued. "I want to run." "We'll go to the playground in the yard, and there you'll run," Veronica urged, squeezing the boy's hand tighter. Hardly had time to reach the yard of their house. Harvey broke free and ran to the swings. Archie was calmer, more balanced. Like all children, he also climbed on the slide, crawled through mazes, swung on swings, but all the time he was in full view of Veronica. Harvey, on the other hand, was always hiding. To quiet her brother, she shouted, "Harvey, Archie, come here, I'll show you an interesting book." The boys were next to her, sitting on either side of her on the bench. Veronica took out of her backpack a beautiful book with full-page pictures. "The book is called Abelette," she said, and opened the colorful edition. "Who is Abelette?" Harvey didn't understand. "Abelette is a kind doctor who cures all the animals in the world." "Nonsense, animals don't get sick," said Harvey and ran to the playground. Veronica looked sadly after him. "Read?" Archie asked. He listened attentively, looking at the pictures. And when Veronica closed the book, the boy said, "I'll be Abelette too." Veronica laughed at the child's naivety. "Not Abelette, but you will be a doctor, or to be more precise, this book tells about a veterinary doctor. He does not treat people from various diseases, but animals." Suddenly the boy asked, "And what do you have this?" He pointed with his finger at Veronica's pendant hanging on a thin gold chain. "This is my medallion, a talisman that protects me from all troubles." The girl took the golden heart in her hands, pressed the edge, and it opened. Inside were pictures of her mother and father. "And who are these?" the boy asked. "And these are my mom and dad. They are always with me. I never part with them." "Beautiful," stretched the boy, got off the bench and ran to the playground. Successfully passed the final state exams, Veronica entered the institute at the Faculty of Romano-Germanic Philology, continued to study foreign languages. Her father drank more and more often. Sometimes the girl did not even want to go home, but there was Harvey who needed her. The boy went to school. It was necessary to check his homework, to explain what he did not understand in class, to monitor progress. Taking care of her brother tied Veronica's hands and feet. She had no opportunity to go out with her friends, whom she had made at the faculty. The girls always had fun. After lectures, they went to caves. On weekends, they relaxed in the club, drinking. Victor always went to bed. He did not rage like the neighbor's husband, did not yell at the children, did not take drunken companies to their apartment. He just drank to forget himself. Veronica tried to understand the man who took her baby, gave her a happy, cloudless childhood, and not doomed to a miserable existence in the walls of the orphanage, except that he could not bear the death of his wife. On weekends, when her father did not have to go to work, the girl asked, "Dad, please check, please, Harvey's lessons. I need to prepare for the test." The man reluctantly broke away from watching TV, swaying, went to Harvey's room. Victor began to have problems at work. The bosses began to notice more and more often that he smelled of alcohol. "If you don't stop showing up to work in a drunken state," the boss warned the man more than once, "I'll be forced to fire you." "Victor, I understand your wife died, but it's been years. You won't get her back, but you'll ruin your life and the lives of your children. You should be thinking about them right now." Victor stopped drinking for a while and then went back to the vodka shop to get a bottle and hid it under the sink so Veronica wouldn't notice. She saw everything, felt sorry for her father, tried not to aggravate the situation. It wouldn't make anyone feel better if she scolded him. After all, the father does not debauch, does not chase them around the apartment. That's how he gets over his grief. A strong, self-confident man. after the death of his beloved woman, became quite weak, unable to overcome the craving for alcohol. When Veronica was finishing her studies at the institute, Victor was fired from his job. "I'm a year and a half away from retirement," he shouted at his boss. "Let me finish my work, Jacob." "I've warned you repeatedly," the boss replied. "If you drink, I'll fire you, and I won't care that you've worked at the factory almost all your life. You can drink on the weekends if you want, but you're overstepping all the limits. You're already drinking in the morning before work. I won't stand for that." "Jacob, I have children." The man breathed at his boss with a mixture of booze and the smell of recently drunk alcohol. "Don't fire me. I'll retire in a year and a half." "And why did you think about children before? When you drowned your life in a glass?" "No, I can't. Go to the personnel department, then to the accounting department for a settlement." Being out of work, Victor began to drink even more. Now a bottle of vodka appeared on the table for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Veronica looked at her father reproachfully. "Don't drink in front of Harvey," she asked. "What an example you're setting for a teenager." "Go away," the father said in a drunken voice. When the money ran out, the family began to feel bad. Veronica began to urgently look for a job. There was no hope for her father, and she realized it. Without work experience, the girl was not hired anywhere. Even her red diploma did not help. Veronica decided to take a tutoring job, pulling up school children in English and French. When she heard that Veronica was tutoring school children, her neighbor asked her, "You should tutor my Archie, Veronica. The boy wants to go to the institute. I'm afraid he won't pass the budget, and you know we have nothing to pay for his studies for 5 years." "Don't worry, I'll pay. But don't charge us too much. We're neighbors after all." Veronica began to study with Archie without demanding a dime from his parents, completely free of charge. The boy was very clever, not like their Harvey, who disappeared all the time in the yard. One day after class, Archie asked, "Veronica, and let me see your talisman." The girl ran her hand under her shirt, pulled out a golden heart, opened it. The guy looked mesmerized at this pendant. "I can't even believe it's Uncle Victor," he said thoughtfully. "He looks so young in this picture. I didn't know your mother at all." "Yes, Harvey and I died in childbirth," Veronica said quietly, thinking, what would her life have been like if her mom hadn't died? How would her father's life have turned out? She was sure that Victor would not have turned from a successful and strong man into a miserable alcoholic. Waking up from her heavy thoughts, she slammed the heart shut. "That's it. Go home and come back on Monday," she told Archie. The guy obediently followed to the front door, and Veronica began to prepare for a class with another student. One day she received a phone call from an institute friend. Veronica was very happy to hear Kira's voice. She hadn't seen her for so long. "Veronica, we're going to a cafe with the girls," her friend gibbered into the phone. "Drop everything and come." The girl hesitated. Father drunk, sleeping in his room. Harvey would be home from school soon. He wouldn't even heat up lunch for himself, so he would go hungry until she returned. But Veronica wanted to see her former classmates. Besides, it had been a long time since she had gone anywhere but the store. After some thought, she made up her mind. "Dictate the address," she said to Kira. She willingly dictated the address of the cafe, and with the words, "We are waiting for you," she disconnected. Half an hour later, Veronica was already sitting at a table with the girls. She was in a wonderful mood. The girl ordered a cocktail, chose the most inexpensive one on the menu, so as not to spend money. The girls told each other about themselves. All of them had good jobs. Kira worked as a translator for some big businessmen. She spoke so funny about him, repeating the man's facial expressions and gestures. When we came to negotiate with the French, my friend said, laughing, "They're all dressed up and important." Well, mine too was not going to fall in the mud. He put on an expensive suit, snow-white shirt, and instead of a tie hung a gold chain thick as a finger. I told him, that's not the way to do it. It's not etiquette. But he insisted, let them see that we also have money, that we are not a fool. So we sat down at a table in a restaurant. The French say, "We are not sure about compliance with technical standards at your construction site, but if we sign a contract with you, we become equally responsible. If something happens, we'll incur losses." I translate mine own, and he says loudly, "Here, assholes, don't translate this. I convinced them that everything is fine with safety technology. It's no better. Here are the supporting documents issued by the commission. But they don't say anything. We began to say goodbye, and then suddenly one Frenchman says to my rich guy, "You asshole, goodbye." The girls laughed out loud. After calming down a bit, Veronica asked, "Why do they need an interpreter if they understand so well?" "Honest dear," said Kara, "if you are rich, have some weight in society, and don't have an entourage, among which an interpreter should also be, the partners will think that you are saving money. That's their business logic." The girls were having a great time, having fun dancing. When they got tired, they sat down at the table again and ordered for the waiter. Veronica refused every time, seeing that she had finished her cocktail long ago and didn't order a fresh one. Kara guessed everything. "Money's tight." She asked so that the other girls wouldn't hear. "Yes," Veronica answered sadly. Kara ordered her another cocktail, gestured with her hand and looked at her and ordered her not to resist. She was just buying her friend a drink. "If you want, I'll get you a job in a publishing agency," Kara suddenly suggested. "The salary is piecework, but you can take additional translations home. And there are often clients who want to work without paying interest to the publisher directly with the translator. Think about my offer. You'll have a whole new life, my friend. It's unthinkable. One of the best students at the INEAS has to earn a living by tutoring." Veronica didn't think long, and what was there to think about if she had such a tempting offer in front of her? Kira opened her purse, took out her business card, and handed it to her friend. "Call this phone number tomorrow afternoon. Say it's from me." She taught Veronica how to act properly, and I'll have time to make arrangements before lunch. "Thank you, darling. You're really helping me out." Veronica thanked her. Her mood got even better. All the troubles, Harvey's outrages, and her drunken father were in the background. She was having fun with her friends. She got home after midnight. The apartment was dark and quiet. Trying not to make noise, on tiptoe, the girl went to her room, undressed, and got into bed. For the first time in a long time, she fell asleep without heavy thoughts, with a feeling of joy and something very good ahead. The next day, the girl called the number on the business card Kira had given her. She introduced herself and said she was to be recommended. The receptionist on the other end of the line asked her to hold on for a while. She would clarify the information. After a while, she answered, "Young lady, can you hear me?" "Yes," Veronica answered confidently. "You are expected tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning for an interview, and warn, please do not be late." "I will be right on time," assured a happy Veronica. She ran to the closet and started pulling out hangers of clothes, thinking about what to wear to the interview. The first impression is very important. Veronica understood that, but her closet had not been updated for a long time. The girl took out her purse from her bag, opened it, and looked inside. There was a small amount of money left over from past classes with students. Surely, having gotten a job at a publishing house, she would no longer be able to devote time to her students. Therefore, she would have to tighten her belt and live frugally, although Veronica was not frugal. The girl thought about it. She couldn't present herself in front of a serious employer in old clothes either. It would be the first step to the refusal of employment. Was not. "I'll buy myself a new skirt and blouse. I'll reach, somehow, until the first paycheck," she decided. Veronica got dressed and left the house, hoping to buy inexpensive but decent things. A couple of hours later, she returned to the apartment with a bag in her hands. She was able to buy a new outfit in business style, a narrow pencil skirt, and a white shirt-type blouse. Examining her reflection in the mirror, Veronica noted that she looked great. This pleased her. The girl felt that something very good was ahead of her. She entered the office of the publishing house 5 minutes earlier than the appointed time. She quickly found the director's office and opened the door. A beautiful girl was sitting at the desk in front of her, staring at the computer monitor. "Hello," Veronica said. "I'm here for an interview." "Come in, sit down, you'll be called." Without looking at Veronica, replied the receptionist. Where did they learn to talk to people like that? Thought Veronica, appreciating the not very friendly tone of the assistant manager. Taking a chair against the wall, Veronica looked around. The reception area was small but bright. It looked like an expensive renovation, in keeping with the modern office style. The furniture was also of high quality, fashionable. The girl already liked being here. And suddenly, I will not fit. This thought for the first time in 2 days arose in her head, and Veronica felt fear. She momentarily forgot everything she wanted to say when presenting her candidacy to the director of the publishing house. She really wanted the job. The longer Veronica waited to be called, the more anxious she became. Finally, the reception phone rang and the receptionist picked it up. "Yes, Anthony. Yes, she's waiting. Good." She hung up the phone and turned to Veronica. "You can come in. Anthony is waiting for you." Veronica got up from her chair. Only 3 or 4 steps separated her from the door of the director's office. But during those seconds, she had already imagined a formidable uncle, like Kara Barabbas, who right now would eat her in no time and wouldn't even choke. A small shiver ran down the girl's spine. She exhaled, knocked softly, and entered. "May I?" she asked. "Come in, have a seat." Veronica was staring at a young, handsome man in a snow-white sweater. His hands were resting on the table, his fingers twirling a pencil, looking at Veronica. So young, and already the director of a publishing house. Veronica thought surprised and delighted at the same time. "Veronica? Yes?" the man clarified. She nodded her head. For some reason, her tongue stuck to her mouth and did not move at all. "You were recommended to me as an excellent translator of English and French, right?" "Yes," Veronica replied. Everything she had wanted to say about her successes, skills, knowledge instantly vanished from her mind. "May I see your papers?" the man asked. Veronica handed him her diploma and some other papers. An excellent diploma." The director shook his head satisfactorily. "In general, we are in great need of translators from Chinese and Persian, but there are always jobs for specialists in the field of Romano-Germanic philology. We will take you on probation. Salary is a salary plus a percentage. Do you understand?" The man raised his eyes to Veronica. "Yes," she answered. "I see you're not very talkative, but it's even better, because our female employees like to chat during the working day, and then the proofreaders after them tons of errors to correct. Our working day is irregular. You can come whenever you want. Of course, I ask you not to abuse the schedule. Otherwise, they come in for half an hour and leave in an unknown direction. And when you need one of the translators right here and now, you can't find anyone. It is much more convenient for me to work in the office than at home." Veronica decided to start a dialogue. "So I plan to spend most of my time here." "I like that. That's commendable," said the director. "On Mondays, there's a briefing at 10 o'clock in the morning. To be mandatory, that goes for all staff." The man looked at Veronica with interest, and she noticed it, shivered, adjusted her blouse on her chest. Suddenly, the director said, "Je vais de junior. Vous n'entendez pas compagnie?" Veronique rose from her chair, took her papers from the table, answered, "Je ne jude pas tête. Qu'est-ce plutôt l'heure du café?" and added, "May I go now?" The young man laughed merrily. "Yes, of course you may go. Celine will show you your workplace." What amused him so much? Has she made a mistake somewhere? Thought Veronica as she walked back to the reception area. She was not confused when the director offered her to have lunch together. She said in French that she did not have lunch at such an early tea time, but drank coffee. And for some reason he found it funny. Maybe she looked ridiculous. "Did you get it?" She heard the secretary's voice. "Did you take it?" I said, "to work for us?" "Yes, I did." Veronica smiled. "Great, congratulations, because we have only gray stockings, old women godmothers, and 60-year-old virgins, with whom there is nothing to talk about." The girl closed the safe with papers on the key, put it in the pocket of her skirt, and gave her hand to Veronica. "I'm Selena. Let's be friends." "And I'm Veronica," smiled back Veronica. "I think we'll be friends." "I know you're Veronica. Kira, my childhood friend, called me yesterday. She's been talking my ear off about you. She kept asking me to put in a good word for you with Dan. So it was you who helped me get a job here." Veronica was surprised. "I, and who else?" laughed the girl. "And to whom you had to recommend me." Veronica did not understand. "Ah, do not pay attention. We among ourselves, so Anthony Nikolaevich call Anthony Dan by initials." Funny, the girls left the reception area, heading straight down the corridor. Selena opened one of the many doors, entered, tapping her heels, gestured for Veronica to follow. "Dear colleagues," she said in a solemn tone, "your regiment has arrived. Meet Veronica." "Hello," said the girl. Employees raised their heads, broke away from monitors, thick books, manuscripts. Selena was right. The staff consisted almost entirely of older women. They were dressed very modestly, gray, not at all fashionable. Selena walked between the desks, pointed to Veronica. "This is your workstation now. Make yourself comfortable. The password for the computer is in the desk drawer. You either rewrite it for yourself or put it in your bag. It's your private entrance. Others should not have access to it." Noticing that Veronica did not quite understand why the password should be hidden, Selena explained, "It's our custom. Sometimes they delete a file by mistake and then accuse their colleagues of sabotaging them." Selena glanced meaningfully at her colleagues, who instantly lowered their heads again, pretending to be engrossed in their work. Interesting company, Veronica thought. She was pleased that she finally found a job, will receive a stable salary, and life will gradually get better. The girl really hoped so. She wanted to help Harvey, to buy him fancy clothes like other boys. She wanted to cure Daddy of his drinking. Surely there are clinics where doctors help alcoholics to stop drinking vodka. For Veronica, there was a ray of light. There was hope that everything would be all right. 10 years passed. Veronica walked down the corridor of the publishing house to the translator's office. Selena called her from the reception area. "Veronica, there's a client waiting for you," she said loudly. "Who?" the girl asked, smiling, looking into the waiting room. With Selena, they became good friends. Often at lunchtime, they had lunch together in a cafe or went to a coffee shop after work. Selena was a very cheerful girl. It seemed that nothing could spoil her mood, lead her into despondency, make her go off the rails. Communicating with Selena, Veronica forgot about all her problems, especially about her hard-drinking father. "I don't know, a solid one." The girl hurried to her workplace. There, indeed, waiting for her was a man of nationality, dressed in a business suit and shoes polished to a shine. Veronica immediately realized the man is wealthy. "Hello," she said, taking a seat at her desk. "I'm Veronica, and I'm listening to you." "That's very good. You see, I need your help," the man began to say, breaking down his words a little. It turned out that it was not him who needed help at all, but his brother John, who was opening a furniture business in the city. For each model, foreign suppliers sent a bunch of accompanying documents, and all of them in English. John, of course, did not know English. Then he was advised to go to a publishing house where they translate books from foreign languages into English, as Adam, John's older brother, had amusingly put it to Veronica. She smiled unknowingly, and the man fell silent. "I said funny, didn't I?" he asked, either taking offense or trying to find an answer as to why this beautiful girl was smiling. "I'll be sure to translate your documents," Veronica assured him. "Do you have them with you?" Of course, the man opened a small briefcase and took out a thick folder. Veronica opened it and leafed through the papers. "Say," she hesitated, thinking that she had forgotten to ask the man his name, and now she was embarrassed. "Adam," the man quickly inserted his name. "Thank you. Adam, tell me, how quickly does your brother want these documents translated?" she asked, looking at the man. "He would need it very quickly," Adam asked. "I think I can provide the translation in 2 days. Is that okay with you?" Adam was very pleased. He promised to come back in 2 days to finish the job. They graciously said goodbye. It was an unofficial order, a part-time job, so to speak. Veronica, like other employees, often took work home with her. She immediately put this order in her bag and decided that she would translate the documents for John's furniture at home in the evening. The girl turned on the computer, began the main work of translating a historical novel. Harvey and her father were at home. Victor was drunk, sitting in sweatpants and a t-shirt, stained with something greasy on his chest, pouring into a shot glass from the bottle. "Daddy, how many times can you do this?" Veronica was indignant. She tried to remove the bottle from the table, but her father resisted. "Put it back," he said angrily. Veronica left the kitchen and locked herself in her room. After changing her clothes, she sat down at her old desk. Long ago, she used it to do her school homework, and then she used it to study notes from the institute. Now she was doing translations at the same desk. Gradually, she began to earn very well, but most of the money went to Harvey's needs. Having finished school badly, the guy could only go to vocational school. He would not have gone to school at all, But Veronica, as an older sister, still managed to convince him that without a profession nowhere. Harvey studied to be a welder. Every time he started to talk about leaving the school, she persuaded him. Harvey, welders make very good money. They're needed everywhere. You study. Soon you will be completely independent. Go to work. You will get a salary and spend it wherever you want. One day, my brother got very upset when Veronica woke him up in the morning. Harvey got up. There's only a little bit left to study. Veronica woke him up loudly and shook him by the shoulder. Leave him alone. He waved her off and got under the blanket again. But the girl insistently pulled the blanket on herself. Harvey jumped up, angry, shouted, "What are you doing to me? That you are always teaching me. Who are you to me? You're nothing to me. Not even a sister. Your parents picked you up from who knows where. You're not even our kin." Veronica looked at her brother dumbfounded. "Harvey, how can you say that?" She reproached her brother. Her father had never spoken of the fact that Veronica had been taken from the orphanage, not a word about it. All his life, he considered Veronica his own daughter, loved her very much. But once drunk on vodka, told Harvey the whole story of the appearance of the eldest daughter in their family. Veronica couldn't calm down for a long time. She was very worried about her father's rash act. But everything has already happened. Harvey learned that Veronica is not his own. Relations between brother and sister spoiled. The girl was offended because she, in fact, replaced the boy's mother. From the first days of life, she took care of her brother, and he now repaid her with such a deep offense. With heavy thoughts, Veronica began to translate the documents Adam had brought her. Gradually, she became engrossed in her favorite task and didn't notice that it was well past midnight on the clock. She went to bed. As she fell asleep, she heard her drunken father muttering something in the kitchen. 2 days later, Adam came to pick up his order. He entered the office. His footsteps made Veronica's co-workers look up and look away from their work. But Veronica wasn't distracted. She only noticed the man when he approached her desk. Adam held a bouquet of gorgeous white roses in one hand and a box of cakes in the other. "Hello, Veronica," he said almost solemnly and held out the flowers. "These are for you." Colleagues looked at the girl and the man with the bouquet with delighted surprise. Veronica was embarrassed. No one had ever given her such beautiful flowers. No one had ever given her bouquets. "Not at all," said the girl, embarrassed. "I can't accept it from a man I don't know." She did not know how to behave. But she couldn't take her eyes off the snow-white roses either. They were luxurious. Adam said confidently, "Flowers I want to give you as a token of my gratitude for helping my brother. And this is for tea for your colleagues." He turned to the female employees who opened their mouths looking at the man, held out a box. "Do you have somewhere to have tea during your break?" Veronica's co-workers nodded their heads. The girl took the flowers, admired them a little more, and offered Adam a seat. "I've been working with your documents," she began to report to the customer. "I have no doubt that everything was done perfectly." The man's accent made Veronica laugh a little and she smiled. "I hope your brother John will be pleased too." Adam placed a white envelope on the table with the payment for his order, and when Veronica reached for it to put it away in the desk drawer, he placed his hand on the girl's arm. She looked into his eyes, made a weak attempt to free her hand, to say something, but Adam interrupted her. "Veronica, I really want to invite you to the cafe," this strong, handsome young man said in an almost pleading tone. "Please don't refuse me. I'd like to get to know you better, treat you to some good wine, and maybe even a kebab or lula kebab. Believe me, I'm good with wine and charcoal. You'll love it." Veronica had never been on a date before, and when was she ever gonna go out with a guy? In high school, she took care of her younger brother. In college, she tried to study hard, then ran home to feed her drunken father and Harvey. Now work. Veronica suddenly thought that all the most interesting, most fascinating things passed her by. She was taking care of people who didn't appreciate her attention. They didn't need her sacrifices at all. She made up her mind and smiling replied, "I agree." The answer pleased the man to no end. He stood up, said he would wait for Veronica at the entrance to the publishing house. He left the office. It took Veronica 10 minutes to get ready, turn off the computer, remove papers from the table, and lock the drawer. The girl fixed her makeup, lightly tinted her lips. She looked very romantic for a first date. "Bye everyone," she said to her co-workers, waved goodbye, and headed for the exit. Adam was waiting for her downstairs. Seeing the girl, he happily opened his car door, inviting Veronica in. She hesitantly sat down, still doubting whether she was doing the right thing by going on a date with a man she didn't know well. But she saw no danger in his handsome eyes. Adam sat Veronica down, got behind the wheel himself, and drove her through the streets of the city. They arrived at a cafe. The room was small, but all the flavor of the place suggested that there was an atmosphere of hospitality and cordiality. The room smelled of meat and spices. "Adam, my dear, how nice to see you." A short man of short stature with chubby cheeks and a fat belly exclaimed as he approached them. "It's been a long time since you visited old Jamal." How old are you, Jamal? Don't be flirtatious," Adam said in reply. The men embraced, patting each other on the shoulders. "This is Veronica. Meet Veronica." The girl's companion introduced Veronica. "She has been very helpful to my brother John in one very important matter." Saying this, Adam meaningfully raised the index finger of his right hand up. very glad," Jamal repeated. "We'd like to have dinner, brother," Adam said. "We'll make it right away. It'll be top-notch," Jamal, the owner of the cafe, fussed. Jamal always had the best for his valued guests. The man left, said something to another man behind the bar, and disappeared behind a curtain. Adam and Veronica took a table by the window. The girl looked around. The lights were dimmed and national music was playing softly. There was a small stage in the corner. Apparently here they also sing or play musical instruments, she thought. A few minutes later, fruit, wine, fresh vegetables, and a little while later an appetizing kebab appeared on their table. "Eat up, dear guest," Jamal smiled, "and I'll drink to your health and good luck." Everyone raised their glasses. At dinner, Adam told Veronica that he had a network of kiosks in the city, selling fruits and vegetables. He was not a poor man, lives alone, recently bought a house, equipped it as it is usually done. The man came here with his brother many years ago. Both of them became entrepreneurs, started to earn good money and constantly transfer money to their homeland. Adam shared with Veronica that he misses his relatives and friends very much. He has a big family left. "Couldn't you earn money where you were born?" the girl asked. "Veronica," Adam looked the girl in the eyes. "Let's say you to each other. We are not in your publishing house after all." "Come on," the girl agreed. "Our country is poor and fruits and vegetables are very cheap. You can't earn much from them," Adam continued. "My mother has 12 children. I'm the oldest, then John. I have brothers and sisters to raise, and my father died a long time ago." Veronica shared with the man that her mom had died years ago too, and she'd had to raise her brother practically on her own. "How much you and I have in common, it turns out," enthusiastically looked at the girl. "Yes, only your relative misses you and loves you, and my brother treats me worse every year." The man took her hand, looked into her saddened eyes. "So you move in with me," he suddenly suggested. "I have a big house. There's plenty of room. Don't worry." Veronica found Adam's suggestion inappropriate, but to lighten the mood, she laughed. "In your homeland, do all of you immediately call girls you don't know to live in your house?" "No, not everyone, just me," Adam said with an accent and laughed too. They had a fun evening and a delicious dinner. The wine made Veronica a little dizzy. Adam brought her home. The man and the girl said goodbye. When Veronica opened the door to the apartment, it was clear she was very late. Her father and brother were asleep in their rooms. The girl quietly went to her room and went to bed as well. As she fell asleep, she thought that Adam was a very kind man and that this was her first date in her life with a young man. The next day, Veronica overslept. Hastily applying makeup to her eyelashes and lips, she dashed to work. She didn't want her colleagues to start gossiping, saying that she left yesterday with a handsome man in an unknown direction, and now she was late for work. "I'll also say that I went out with them all night." But it was business as usual at work. No one seemed to notice that Veronica was late. On the table were folders with new orders for translations. The girl began to sort them out by degree of complexity and volume. She went into work with her head. When she came home in the evening, she found a strange girl in her apartment who was dressed in a bathrobe. "Who are you?" the girl asked her brazenly. "And you?" Veronica asked. "I'm Lucy. I live here," answered the stranger in a cheerful tone. Veronica bent down, took off her shoes, slipped her feet into her house slippers. Yes, how long ago? An ironic smile appeared on her face. She realized that the girl hadn't been brought by her father, so it's Kolka's friend. As of today, the maiden leaned against the door jamb, not letting Veronica pass. Well, I've lived here a little longer than you have, so please let me in. It finally dawned on Lucy that this was her boyfriend's sister, and she stepped aside. Veronica realized she wasn't even surprised. So Harvey is dating this girl. Young, yes, early turned out to be her brother. She is studying at the same vocational school for a plasterer and painter. She came from some remote village. Lucy got tired of living in the dormitory, and she found out that Harvey lives in a large 4-room apartment, quickly hunted down a guy and moved in with him. Do you mind that I'm going to live here? Lucy, standing behind the closed door to Veronica's room, was getting into a scandal. Well, why not? Veronica shouted, so that the girl heard her well. We have plenty of room, and where there are 3, there are 4 will fit. But don't take my things. Don't you have a robe of your own? The girl was silent for a while. I don't care, I need your robe, and her footsteps were heard outside the door. From that day on, Veronica's life became unbearable. The insolent girl behaved like the last rascal. She could walk in her underwear from their room to the bathroom to take a shower, covering her bare breasts with her hands, soaking her underwear in a basin, and it's sour for several days. And when she got used to their apartment, she began to bring her friends from her vocational school, the same plasterers and painters. They organized parties with loud music and alcohol. My father pretended that it didn't concern him, closed himself in the kitchen and drank vodka. One day, coming home, Veronica once again found a merry company in the living room. Looking at the mess made by the youth, she went into the kitchen. "Did you eat something, Dad?" she asked her father. He looked at his daughter with a look clouded by alcohol and mumbled something inaudible. "It's all clear," Veronica said, and put the soup on the stove to heat and feed Victor. In a few years of drinking, he had turned from a strong man into an old man. The girl felt sorry for him. He was the closest person to her, even though he was not related to her. Her father continued to mutter something. She caught fragments of phrases. "You do not offend me. I always loved you as my own. Harvey does not understand anything. He threatened our mother. I left you money from the salary, money transferred to the account as you were born. They are all in the heart." The girl put a bowl of soup in front of her father. "Daddy, we need to eat," she asked him, worried that her father had been hungry all day. And he reached for the finished bottle and poured it into a shot glass. Unable to bear the sight of it all, she went to her room. Veronica had a new translation in her bag, but she couldn't do it in such an environment. Waking up in the morning, Veronica went to the kitchen for a drink of water and found her father lying on the floor. He was dead. Tears flowed from the young woman's eyes. She knew it was to be expected. Her father had been drinking for years, but it was hard to accept that she was an orphan. The girl picked up the phone, called the ambulance and the police to record the death. A few days later, she and Harvey buried Dad. The wake was held at home. Veronica thought they would sit quietly and peacefully, the 3 of them, she, Harvey, and Lucy. But the brother and the maiden brought a whole crowd of young people and made a real party out of the wake. Veronica looked sadly at the mess and wanted to leave, but there was nowhere to go. The next day after work, Adam picked her up. They had been seeing each other for months, driving around town in his car, going to Jamal's cafe where they were always welcome, just hanging out. Veronica felt that Adam had become a trusted friend with whom she could always share unhappy thoughts. When Adam heard how difficult it was for Veronica to live with her brother and his girlfriend, he said, "I've been suggesting to you for a long time, move in with me. I have a big house. No one will hurt you there. I come late. You can do your translations in peace." Veronica couldn't find any arguments against Adam's proposal, so she agreed. She packed a suitcase with her belongings and went to live in his house. For the first 4 months, they lived as good friends or relatives. Adam's house was, indeed, spacious. In an attempt to thank the man, Veronica cooked delicious breakfasts and dinners, and on weekends, they spent time together at Jamal's cafe. But Veronica realized that Adam was a man with hot blood. Sooner or later, he would demand from her female warmth and affection. And so it happened. They became close. They started sleeping in the same bed. The closeness with Adam did not burden Veronica at all. The man was gentle, never offended her, and always treated the girl with understanding if she was tired. It seemed to her that he could be a good husband and father. 3 more years flew by unnoticed. One day, walking down the corridor of her publishing house, Veronica met the secretary Selena. She, as usual, was cheerful, grabbed Veronica by the arm and dragged her away from the offices. "What are you, friend? Have you stopped coming to see me? Come on, let's go for a coffee." She insisted, and Veronica agreed, looking at her watch. 5-10 minutes she could afford to spend chatting with Selena. Over coffee, the receptionist asked how Veronica was doing with her sting. "All is well. He is decent, caring, takes me out sometimes, takes me to cabs, and just for a walk," smiled Veronica. "Has he already proposed to you?" Selena asked. In general, Veronica was waiting for Adam to offer her to be his bride and then his wife, but he didn't do it. Upon learning that the man apparently had no intention of marrying Veronica, Selena became indignant. "Are you crazy? You've been living as husband and wife for so long. Talk to him about it yourself. You need to take the bull by the horns and not wait until he is going to take you to the registry office. That's the last thing men think about." After talking to Selena, Veronica went to her workplace. All day long her friend's words were in her head, and in the evening at dinner she decided to talk to her roommate. "Adam, why don't you want to marry me?" she asked, looking at the man. "I don't. I want to, honey." Adam answered her question with a twist of words. "But to marry, you have to gather your relatives for a council, get the blessing of your elder and your mother, and they're a long way away. So let's go there," Veronica suggested. "I thought about it too, but I have a lot of work to do. I can't get away right now. But I called my mother and told her that I have you, so beautiful and kind, and she approved. When the time comes, you and I will go to her, and then we'll get married." Adam's words calmed Veronica a little. He really spent a lot of time at work and was hardly ever at home. The girl decided not to run ahead of the horses and leave everything as it was. The next day she approached Adam's house, returning from work. In front of the entrance stood her suitcase. Not understanding anything, Veronica looked at her things. The girl pulled the wicket. It turned out to be locked from the inside. Taking her cell phone out of her purse, she dialed Adam's number. To her surprise, he answered very quickly. "What's going on, Adam? Why is the gate locked and my suitcase outside?" asked Veronica. "Because I'm not going to live with you anymore," Adam replied. "I brought another woman to be my mistress." Veronica didn't understand anything. Only one thing was clear. Her roommate had kicked her out of the door. She grabbed the handle of the suitcase and rolled it towards the bus stop. Adam's plan was not to get married. He had simply gotten rid of Veronica, feeling that she wanted to be his spouse. The woman slowly made her way up to the 4th floor. There was a noise coming from her father's apartment. Something was falling there. The household was talking in raised tones, but the words from behind the front door were indistinguishable. Suddenly, the neighbor looked out of her door, the same one who had once asked me to pick up her son Archie from kindergarten and then to study English with him. "Hello, Veronica," she greeted the woman, but her face was serious. "You better keep your brother quiet. They're a real nuisance. They're always making noise. They're always partying. It's a buzzing noise until the night." "All right," Veronica promised and opened the door with her key. The apartment was a mess. Lucy was stirring something in a dirty pot on the stove in her barefoot slippers, stretchy pants, and t-shirt. Harvey was lying on the couch. The TV was blaring so loud that he didn't even notice his sister right away. The boy sat up in surprise. "What are you doing here with a suitcase?" he asked. "Actually, this is my house too," Veronica said and went to her room. "We'll have to get along with these Patashniki somehow," she thought, sitting down on the bed. The woman quietly unpacked her things, putting them on shelves in her closet. She wanted to take a shower and went to the bathroom, but Lucy blocked her way. "What do you want in there?" she asked insolently. "I want to take a shower," Veronica replied. "Don't I have the right to shower in my apartment after a day's work?" "It's occupied," said the plasterer. Veronica didn't understand. Lucy is standing across the hall. Her brother is lying on the sofa in the living room. Who could be in the bathroom? Pushing the insolent damsel out of the way, she opened the bathroom door. What she saw there was beyond Veronica's comprehension. There was a machine in the bathtub that took up half of the tank. Some liquid dripped from it, and the smell was unbearable. "What is it?" She turned to Lucy. "Don't you understand?" The girl asked again. "We have to live on something. You moved in with a rich man, left your little brother, and he sometimes wants to eat, so you know. So we had to make moonshine and sell it." Veronica's eyes went up to her forehead. It turns out that this couple produces homemade alcohol and sells it to local alcoholics. Veronica took a closer look at the girl, and it looked like she was drunk herself. She quickly went into the living room, made Harvey get up from the couch. "Do you want to end up like our father?" She scolded her brother. "What's this moonshine idea? Why don't you like it? We've been making money like this with Lucy for 2 years now. We have customers from all over the neighborhood," Harvey said, proud of this entrepreneurial spirit. Veronica had no words. She began to walk from corner to corner, thinking how to convince her brother that it is not possible to live like this. "Harvey, you and your roommate have professions. You can, like normal people, go to work and get a paycheck." "Yeah, run and stumble," Harvey grinned. "We'll work hard for a dime. Moonshine is gold. I'm lying on the couch, and the money's just dripping into the bottle." "Stop all this at once," Veronica ordered, "or I'll call the police and you'll be in big trouble." Suddenly, Lucy burst into the room. "What are you doing to her?" she shouted at Harvey. "Tell her to get the hell out of here. She's the bossy one. Nobody asked you to come here. Get out." "Shut the door and get out. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my brother." She tried not to shout. "What brother?" shouted the insolent girl. "You're nothing to him. He picked you up when you were abandoned and you sat on his neck. Now you're trying to ruin my life with Harvey. Get out of here." Lucy shoved Veronica in the shoulder. Veronica was speechless at the insolence. She had grown up in this apartment since she was a baby, raised her brother, practically replaced his mother, and now he was paying her with this kind of coin. None of it fit in her head. Harvey pulled up his pants with his knees drawn up, walked over to Veronica. "Lucy says it right. You're a stranger here. You have no rights to this place. Last year, we kicked you out of the apartment by court." "What do you mean, kicked out?" Veronica didn't understand. And so Lucy yelled more than before, "Who will pay for light, water, gas? Are we? You haven't given a penny to pay the utility bills for over a year, so we went to court to have you discharged from here." "Why didn't you tell me anything?" Veronica asked in a quiet voice. "I would have given you money. I would have paid. We don't want anything from you. Get out of here." The brother and his girlfriend threatened Veronica. They pushed the woman, who hadn't even had time to dress, out the door, her coat and boots flying into the stairwell. Veronica stood in front of the slammed door. What had happened to her seemed like a terrible dream. She didn't understand how it could be. Her brother had kicked her out of the house without even thinking where her sister would go. Veronica slowly descended the stairs, went out into the yard. Her legs were shaking. She sat down on the bench where she had once read Harvey and Archie's books. There was nowhere to go. She was dizzy, her blood pressure probably high. How she ended up in the entrance of a house, Veronica did not know. An unfamiliar woman asked her, "Are you lost or what? Why are you sitting here?" Veronica was silent. Then she asked, "Could you give me some water? I'm very thirsty." "I'll bring it out." The stranger disappeared behind the apartment door, and a minute later she returned with a glass of water. "Here." Veronica drank greedily. "What is the date today?" she asked the woman, returning the glass. "September 25th, she replied. "Where have I been wandering for 5 whole days?" asked Veronica herself, realizing that the worst thing that had happened to her had happened on the 20th. She looked around herself. Her gray coat was all dirty. Several buttons were missing. Veronica's hands were dirty too, as if she had been digging in a garbage dump. She smelled foul. The woman tried to get up, which she did with difficulty. She walked toward the exit, the stranger shaking her head and looking after her. How long she wandered through the streets, Veronica did not know. Finally, she found herself in the back of a supermarket. The store's back door opened, and a guy came out. He was carrying the basket that shoppers usually put their purchases in. The guy approached the garbage bin and started throwing bread, sausages, cabbage into it. "Wait," Veronica called him in a weak voice. "You're throwing it all away anyway. Give it to me. I haven't eaten for days." The supermarket employee looked at the woman. She looks like a homeless woman, but the clothes are not like those worn by homeless people who often came to the dumpster behind the store. Take it, I don't mind, only it's all expired, the guy warned. Veronica didn't care. She felt a terrible hunger that was grinding her from the inside. Grabbing a cellophane-wrapped sausage and a loaf of bread, she walked away. Behind the garages, Veronica sat down on a fallen tree and began to eat greedily. She didn't know what to do next. For a few more days, she wandered around the city, each time returning to the dumpster behind the supermarket, waiting for the employees to start throwing out spoiled food. That day she kept waiting, but no one came out. Veronica staggered around like a drunk. She had almost no strength. Something in her stomach was hurting her, almost tearing her whole gut with a sharp, cutting pain. Suddenly, this pain became so severe that the woman fell down and started squirming on the ground near the dumpster. "Woman, what's wrong with you?" She heard an unfamiliar female voice. "Are you ill? Help someone." Employees ran out of the store and dialed an ambulance. Veronica began to lose consciousness. She heard a voice from far away. "Just don't pass out, you hear me? Look at me." Steve entered the hospital emergency room. Looking from the side at the patient, who was lying on a gurney covered in dirt, he began to berate the ambulance crew. "Are you going to take all the homeless people in the city to us? We don't have enough room in medicine for normal people, and you're picking up homeless people on the street." "Steve, let me take a look at her," Archie said. The intern and the chief of surgery had a long-standing conflict. The head of the surgical department considered the young surgeon an upstart. The man constantly challenged the diagnosis that the experienced doctor gave patients. It pissed him off that the intern was often right. This was seen by colleagues who could doubt the competence of the head doctor. "And Archie, go ahead, work. This is just your contingent," said the chief physician wryly. "You only on the homeless and train." The head left the emergency room, and the intern began to examine the woman on the gurney. He was assisted by a nurse. As he was removing Veronica's clothes, she noticed a piece of jewelry. "Look, Archie, that's a beautiful pendant. It's the first time I've seen homeless people wearing gold jewelry." Archie looked at the chain with the pendant and marveled. It was the same one he had seen on Veronica. His neighbor, who took him from home to kindergarten, read him books, taught him English. He took off her jewelry, pressed the side, and the heart opened, revealing a picture of Veronica's father and mother. He quickly removed the chain and pendant from the woman, began groping her abdomen. "Prep her for surgery right away," he told the nurse and walked out. After the IV, which Veronica was put on by a young nurse with kind eyes, the woman slept for almost 24 hours. She woke up in the early morning. Sunlight was timidly penetrating through the window of the ward. Veronica did not immediately realize where she was. She remembered the garbage dump, the tunnel, the figure in white who wouldn't let her walk toward the bright light, and then the man's eyes brown, framed by thick lashes. "Good morning, Veronica." She heard the man's voice. The woman thought she was having visions again, but a doctor in a white coat was leaning over her. "You don't remember me?" She looked at him and didn't understand why she should remember a stranger. "I'm Archie, your neighbor," the man said hurriedly. "You used to take me home from kindergarten when you came to pick up my brother Harvey." Veronica closed her eyes. Harvey, how could she do that to her? Her brother had just kicked her out of the house without a second thought as to where she would go. Opening her eyes again, she stared intently at the doctor leaning over her bed. Slowly, she recognized him as that neighbor boy, Archie. The woman wondered what he was doing here. "I work here," Archie said. "Yesterday, you were brought in by ambulance with peritonitis. You were picked up on the street. I operated on you. You're fine now. You're in no danger. Tell me, how are you feeling?" "Good," the woman answered quietly. "Veronica, how did you end up on the street?" asked the surgeon. "I did not even immediately recognize you. In such a terrible condition brought." Tears flowed from the woman's eyes. They flowed down her cheeks, got on her lips, and Veronica felt the salty taste. She was hurt, bitterly ashamed at the realization of all that had happened to her. Adam, Harvey, the brazen girl who had preyed on her brother. They'd all kicked her out the door, and she'd never done anything wrong to them. Archie pulled out a handkerchief, slowly wiped the tears from her face, stroked her shoulders soothingly. When Veronica calmed down, they talked for a long time. Archie was horrified by what had happened to his neighbor. told the young surgeon himself about how his life had turned out. After school, Archie failed his exams and could not enter the institute. He had to go to the army. After returning, he spent a year preparing for admission and was enrolled in a medical school, began to study to be a surgeon. Now he's doing well, he's doing his internship, lives with a girl student. Soon she'll get a diploma in pediatrics. Archie took Veronica's pendant out of his pocket and put it on her, and she looked at the doctor appreciatively. At that moment, the head doctor entered the room. "I see you're lucky again," he said wryly, "and I thought that you stabbed a homeless woman right on the operating table." The superintendent threw the blanket off Veronica, began to examine the stitches. "Tomorrow, prepare her for discharge. There's no need to organize a godsend here. Normal people don't have enough beds." "But she still has to get better. Wait for her stitches to heal," Archie objected. "They'll heal on the street like a dog." The head doctor turned and left the room. Veronica looked at Archie in confusion. Would she have to go back to the dump again? Autumn rain pounded against the window. The young surgeon was silent for a moment, then said, "I'll take you to my place." Archie was sure that his girlfriend Katia would accept Veronica, who had treated him so well as a child. The next morning, he brought Veronica to his house. It was an ordinary one-room apartment without any frills or signs of wealth. Sitting at the table, Archie told Katia what had happened to Veronica, and she shook her head. How heartless people can be. It's a wonder Veronica didn't die on the street somewhere, that the ambulance got there in time. They don't joke about peritonitis, Archie said. And Veronica took out her talisman pendant in the form of a heart from under her robe, carefully given to her by Katia. "It was my parents there, in heaven, who kept me safe from death." She pressed the side of the pendant, and it opened. A picture of my mom and dad, cut to the shape of the pendant, fell from the heart onto the table. Veronica took it in her hands and looked at their faces. She'd have to glue it on. I guess the old glue had dried up and wouldn't hold the paper. Archie took the photo from Veronica's hands and turned it in his hands. "What are these numbers?" he asked the woman, showing a long number on the back of the photo. Veronica looked at them, perplexed. She didn't know the answer either. And then she remembered her father's words, which he repeated in a drunken frenzy. Heart, money in the account. From every paycheck. Could it be that he was not delirious, drunk on vodka, and was telling the truth? "Then we must check it out," Archie said firmly. "How?" "No bank will give account information without a passport," Veronica replied. Her passport was left in the apartment where she had been kicked out and told not to return by Harvey and his girlfriend. That same day, Archie went to the house where he had lived before. He visited his mother and then went to the stairwell and rang the bell of the apartment next door. The door was opened by Harvey. "What do you want?" he asked. "Let me through," Archie demanded. Harvey started to close the door, but was immediately punched in the face by Archie. Harvey staggered and fell in the hallway, and Archie went into Veronica's room, opened the closet, threw things from the shelves into the suitcase. Then the man opened the desk drawer and found the passport. Without saying a word to the dazed Harvey, he left the apartment. Veronica's father had indeed opened a bank account for his adopted daughter and had been adding to it every month since the day of the adoption. The amount had accumulated enough for Veronica to buy a one-room apartment. Katia and Archie helped her make the repairs. Treating the helpers to tea and cake, she thought that for the first time in her life, a white streak had begun. The pain of betrayal squeezed Selena's heart. She was crushed, killed, knocked out of the rut of what she thought was a happy family life. All because of this woman. They say thief of other people's happiness. But her husband, it seems, was not opposed to their happiness when Selena was stolen because, as you know, he who takes care of his good hides it away so that strangers did not get to. Immersed in her thoughts, she did not notice how she reached the hairdresser's shop where Selena's friend Kathy worked. She didn't feel like telling anyone what she had found out. For some reason, her husband had cheated and Selena was ashamed. Now she wanted no one to ever know about how shamelessly the man she had given almost 20 years of her life had treated her. They were supposed to be celebrating their anniversary this year. But Kathy had already spotted her from the window and was waving invitingly. Selena stood for a minute, smiling at her friend through the window with pictures of beautifully coiffed ladies. Finally making up her mind, after all, Katie was her only friend. She had been friends since first grade. Maybe she'll recommend something, Selena thought and entered the hairdresser's. It's so good to see you, Katie rattled on. Since we broke up at the reunion 2 weeks ago and haven't seen each other since. I wish you'd call me. I haven't had a moment's peace. I'm busy at work. I've got makeup and haircuts. At home, my stunners are on my ass. Anthony's gotten straight A's at school. Angelica's fighting with the boys. They don't need their father's belt. Anthony and Angelica are Katie's kids. She's raising them alone. Her husband has long gone to another, faithfully pays alimony, but does not want to take part in the life of offspring. Or rather, he may be and wants to, but his new girlfriend strictly forbids the man to meet with the children even on neutral territory, let alone to come home to Kathy. Inferiority complex syndrome, Kathy said with a laugh. She rightly thought that a self-confident woman would never forbid a father to see his own children. And that's what's so frustrating. Called to school and it's all my Anthony and Angelica's fault. And all why? Because they actually have no father. There is no one, to come and slam his fist on the principal's desk to say, look at the others. There is nothing to blame, only mine in everything. Katie continued to talk nonstop, and Selena silently looked at the pictures on the walls. Beautiful women with spectacular hairstyles and eye-catching makeup looked up at her from the posters. It looked as if they were saying, men go from ugly women like you to beautiful women like us. Listen, Katie, Selena suddenly interrupted her friend's chirping. Can you do my hair like the madam in the picture? Katie stopped talking, looking at her friend carefully. Something was wrong with her, not like she usually was today. What's wrong? She asked, and Selena suddenly burst into tears. Katie took Selena under her elbow. Let's go and have a coffee and talk. I have a window between clients. I can afford to rest. They went into the back room, where the masters of the hairdresser's shop had organized a kind of corner of rest with a sofa, a table, and a kettle. Katie took out mugs, sugar, and instant coffee. She silently prepared a fragrant drink for herself and her friend and sat down on the couch. Tell me what happened, she ordered in a commanding tone. Selena stopped sobbing, calmed down a little. Harvey's cheating on me, she said quietly and cried again. Yeah, she said. What a bastard. So many years together, and you've got the urge to go left. Tell me, who is she? I don't know, answered Selena, wiping her tears with a handkerchief. I just know she's cheating. Well, if the fact is not proven, then maybe you made it all up. Maybe you imagined it, didn't you, Selena? She'd been through a divorce herself and knew how painful it was. No, Katie, I wasn't imagining it. I heard him on the phone. He said love, and unfortunately, it wasn't me on the other end of the line. How's everything at home? Well, how's he behaving? My friend asked. Everything as usual. He came in, ate TV, shower, bed. Katie chewed her cookie slowly, drinking her coffee. She understood Selena like no one else. Her husband had left the family 5 years ago. Nothing had heralded trouble, but one day he just packed his bags and said, I'm leaving. I'm sorry, I'm gonna help the kids. Look, Katie, maybe I need to change something about myself. Maybe I need to change my hair. Maybe I need a makeover. Selena looked at her friend hopefully. Nonsense, Katie cut in. If a man's going to leave, he'll leave. Take my Archie. Did I ever look bad? Even when I had Angelica, I always had my hair done, manicures, makeup on, and he still left. Now he sits behind the lines. He's got a new life, you see. I'm sorry, you don't look great, but that's not the point. Then what is it? I mean, who understands men? At a certain point, they lack drive, adrenaline, thrill. And you give all that to your Harvey. No adrenaline. Selena was a school teacher. Every day was like Groundhog Day. Students, notebooks, home, checking notebooks and preparing for the next class. She often sat at her desk until late at night, and when she entered her bedroom, she fell into bed and fell asleep before her head touched the pillow. And these divorcees, continued her friend, as a rule, women are not burdened. They have no problems, no children who need to wipe snot and change pants. They are free, ready for any adventure. And this and attract men left without attention wives. But I always have dinner cooked and the house clean, tidy, and cozy. Harvey doesn't need your dinner, Kathy exclaimed. He is quite capable of going to a restaurant and eating there, and in the company of a young, beautiful woman. You know how to calm him down, Selena said half jokingly. Still, Katie, why don't you do something about my hair? You know, something drastic so he'll notice. Her friend looked at Selena critically. What can be done, as went with a braid from school years and still wears it, sometimes curled in a shell at the back of the head. Come on, let's try to do something with you, she said. Selena came out of the barbershop without a braid. Her friend had given her a haircut, shortening her hair to her shoulders and slanting bangs, fashionable among young girls. It looked good, Selena liked it. She went home excited to please Harvey with her new look. Selena and Harvey met in the third year of university. Selena studied at the Faculty of Philology and Harvey at the Faculty of Economics. They were the same age. Their parents were not rich or officials, ordinary people with ordinary professions. That's why from the school bench both the girl and the boy knew that no one could pay for their studies. They should try to enter on a budget. And they did, living in a dormitory, like most of the visiting students. Selena was a modest girl, tried not to stand out in the motley crowd of students. Perhaps Harvey would never have noticed her if she hadn't accidentally dropped a whole stack of lecture notebooks and magazines on the stairs. Dropped it right in front of the guy. He rushed over to help pick it up. Dialectology, the guy read on the notebook. Do you study at the philology department? Yes, answered Selena. I'm an economics major, third year. I'm in third year too. Strange, I've never seen you before. Selena never noticed him either. An interesting guy with glasses was looking at her carefully. In his hands he held her notebooks. The girl held out her hands to take them. Thank you for helping. The next day they met in the dining hall and now they noticed each other immediately. Harvey with a tray in his hands approached the table where Selena was eating lunch alone. He smiled welcomingly. Are you free? May I join you? Sure, have a seat. Today I passed my management and marketing exam. The teacher tried his best to fail, he said in such a nasty voice. I haven't seen you, young man, at my lectures. Harvey started the conversation, stirring sour cream in the borscht. And I said, Avon, the best students are the ones who are inconspicuous, who can absorb the material without distracting the instructor with their appearance. The guy laughed. Selena laughed too. How simple he is, not like the other guys in economics, she thought. He asks everyone one extra question and lets them go with the credit. And he asked me 3, can you imagine? 3 whole ones. Clearly he wanted to fail. And you answered all 3 questions, Selena asked. Of course, I was preparing, Harvey answered with pride for his honestly earned credit. Selena was already finishing her compote when the boy suddenly asked, and maybe we'll go out tonight. After all, there is something to celebrate. What do you do after uni? After classes, Selena usually read while sitting on her bed in her dorm room. Sometimes, if she was in the mood, she took a walk in the park. Her friends who lived with her often invited her to parties and discos, but Selena refused more often than she agreed. Her parents were not rich people, and it was necessary to study well to get an increased scholarship. Otherwise, there was no way to live. Since entering the university, she hadn't gone out with any guy. No, she wasn't running away from guys. They just weren't interested in getting to know her. Selena had a friend at school, Billy. They lived in neighboring buildings. Their parents were friends, and Selena and Billy talked to each other. When the boys were graduating from high school, their father said to Selena, Daughter, look what a nice guy Billy is. He's like a stone wall. You should look up to him. Come on, Daddy, we're friends, and I'm about to go to college. Selena entered the university, successfully passing the exams, and Billy went to the army to serve in the airborne troops. Sometimes letters came from him, and Selena answered eagerly, as soon as she had a moment to write back. The offer to go out with Harvey, an unfamiliar third-year econ major, didn't faze her. She agreed, and that evening he was waiting for her at the entrance to the dorm. They walked through the snowy park. Harvey told funny tales from the life of students. Selena laughed. When they went into the cafe to warm up, it seemed to her that she had known him for years. It turned out that they came from the same city, though they lived on different sides of the river. That's why you and I never crossed paths, Harvey said. We even have left and right bankers walk separately at high school graduations. Have you been home lately? Selena asked. In the summer, I'm going to go after the winter session. My parents need help with repairs, said the boy. Caring son, Selena thought. She missed her parents. She couldn't get used to them not being around. They called often, always saying that they missed her very much and were waiting for her daughter to come home. "I'll go after exams too," she said. "And let's go together. It will be more fun," Harvey suggested. Until the end of the session, they hardly saw each other. Sometimes they met in the canteen and exchanged a few words of greeting. Suddenly, Selena began to think more and more often about this funny guy with glasses. How small the world is. They lived in the same city all their lives and met only here. It happens. On the other hand, nothing surprising. Their town was divided into two parts by the river. The left bank and right bank districts were connected by a long automobile bridge. On both banks, there was everything for the residents to exist without crossing the river: stores, schools, post office, kindergartens, hospitals, and clinics. It was mostly those who worked there who traveled to the other bank, and Selena didn't need to. Next to her house was her native school, where she went from the first grade. If she was sick, her mother went with her to the clinic, which was also nearby. That's why she had little chance of meeting Harvey. They met at the bus station to go to their hometown together. It was more fun to travel together, especially since they would have to spend 6 hours on the bus. "Hi." Harvey's gym bag was hanging on his shoulder, and he was shuffling from foot to foot, apparently freezing. "We're leaving soon, so let's hurry up and get a better seat on the bus." They hurried together to the platform. Harvey took the heavy suitcase from Selena's hands in a gentlemanly manner. The bus started up. Outside the city, it picked up speed and swayed gently on the springs. Selena felt sleepy. She laid her head on Harvey's shoulder and fell asleep. The nervous tension and lack of sleep from studying for exams and credits had taken its toll. She woke up to the bus stopping. "Parking lot," Harvey said. "I'm going to go get us something to eat." He ran out of the bus and headed for a roadside cafe. Selena watched him through the window. The guy brought a pie and a cup of coffee. "Now we'll make it home. And their mom's belyashi, borscht and dumplings," Harvey said dreamily and handed Selena a coffee and a cabbage pie. "This cafeteria cooking does not compare to what my mom cooks. And my dad cooks very good." The girl decided to support the conversation. "Do you know how deliciously he bakes chicken in the oven with garlic and lemon juice? The whole apartment smells so fragrant that you drool." "Yeah, we miss home-cooked food." Harvey commented on the desire to talk about home-cooked food. 6 hours after departure, the bus stopped at the Selenia station. On getting off, Harvey gave her a hand, helped her down her suitcase. "Well, so long," he said. "I'll see you again. Bye." They walked off in different directions. "Where will I see you?" Selena thought. The next day, a snowball flew into the window of the second-floor apartment. It thudded against the window frame. "Who's that hooligan out there?" her father said, and walked over to the window. With his hands on the windowsill, he looked out for the robber who had made an unexpected attack on their apartment. Selena also went to the window. Harvey was standing in the courtyard, waving his hand. "It's for me," she exclaimed and ran out of the room. Selena threw on her jacket and ran down the stairs. "Hi. How did you find where I live?" the girl asked in surprise. "The matter of technique, found out in the educational part. It became interesting," smiled the guy. "Let's go for a walk. Look how wonderful the weather is." "How is it in the classics?" "Frost and sunshine. It's a wonderful day." "Yes, exactly like that," laughed Selena. They walked through the snowy city. Harvey was talking excitedly, and Selena felt very happy. Coming back from the hairdresser with a new haircut, she remembered that day for some reason. Not the day Harvey had confessed his love to her, not the moment he had proposed to her, not even the day of the wedding. She remembered the time spent in their hometown, the snowy streets, the frozen glass on the streetcar, the first kiss in her driveway. Yes, that was when Harvey had kissed her for the first time. His lips had been warm and the kiss had been tender, demanding nothing in return. How happy I was then. Where did it all go? Selena thought. The apartment was traitorously empty. I should at least get a cat, at least someone to meet. The thought of getting a pet had visited Selena many times, but every time she was ready to take home a cute kitten, she changed her mind. She and Harvey were away all the time. Who would take care of the animal? Selena looked in the mirror in the hallway. The new hairstyle definitely suited her, he even made her look younger. However, despite her age, she still looked quite young. There were almost no wrinkles on her face, except for the hound's feet in the corners of her eyes. But they didn't spoil the appearance at all. I wonder what she's like. Harvey's mistress, Selena thought. Her imagination pictured a spectacular blonde with brightly painted lips in a short skirt and a low-cut blouse. Selena picked up a bright lipstick from the nightstand and circled her lips, looked at herself in the mirror with a critical eye and nervously wiped the lipstick off. Bullshit. It's all nonsense. If a man loves, he does not care what kind of makeup on the face of his beloved and the depth of the neckline on her clothes. Resentment boiled up again in the woman's soul. Walking to the kitchen, she drank some water to calm herself down. Selena didn't know what to do in this situation, but intuitively she knew that now was not the time to get angry. It was time to wait. Maybe things would work out. Maybe Harvey just got carried away. It happens to all men. The phone rang in the silence. Harvey came up on the screen. "Hello," Selena answered, sliding her finger across the screen. "Hello, darling," she heard her husband's voice on the other end, and her heart snapped with an unpleasant feeling. "Hi, I'm going to be late today," Harvey said. "I've got a good deal coming up, some paperwork to do." "For how long?" "I don't know how it's gonna work out, but don't wait up. Oh, and don't cook dinner for me. I'll eat in the office." "Okay," Selena sighed and hung up the phone. She sat down on the couch, wrapping her arms around her head. Everything pointed to the fact that her happy, calm, measured family life was beginning to crumble. Her entire future could depend on how she behaved now. But what to do, Selena didn't know. The thought drilled into her head, catch her red-handed. She decided to call Katie, but the caller was offline. Ah, that's a shame. Kathy would definitely have some advice, Selena thought. Finally, she resolutely put on her raincoat and left the apartment, forgetting to turn off the lights. Outside, she caught a cab. "Hurry up, please," the woman said, handing the driver $10. 10 minutes later, she was outside the business center building where Harvey's office was located. A dim light burned in the window of his office. Selena hesitated for a moment and headed into the building. Going up in the elevator, it seemed to her that it was moving very slowly. Finally, the elevator doors opened and the woman walked down the hallway, trying not to tap her heels on the floor. Office 1053. Selena grasped the doorknob, hesitated a bit, and pulled it down sharply. The door opened. Behind the desk sat her husband, immersed in reading documents. He raised his head, looking at his wife in surprise. "Selena, what are you doing here? Is something wrong?" She looked around the office. Harvey seemed to be alone. There was no sign of a woman in the room. Moreover, there was no indication that she had been here before. The man walked over to his wife, took her by the shoulders, and sat her down in a chair. "What's wrong, darling? You're shivering." Harvey looked worriedly at Selena. Not understanding what was going on, he thought that something terrible had happened. Otherwise, his wife would not have come to the office at such a late hour. Selena was really not in the habit of going to Harvey's office. There were times when he was running late, but it never occurred to her to go and check what he was doing in his office. Why did I think that about him? Selena thought as she watched her husband pour her a glass of water. She was crazy in her suspicions. The woman was deeply ashamed. Intelligent people should not behave like this. Spouses should trust each other, and she... "It's okay. I just wanted to bring you dinner." She made a weak attempt to justify her act. "Well, why bother? I told you, I'll get something to eat here," Harvey said. "I meant well. Come here." He put his arm around his wife, pulling her close to him, and she felt very calm. Selena felt uncomfortable, censured for the rash act. That's why she didn't call Katie. She would have talked her out of this madness, and she wouldn't have to look ridiculous in the eyes of her husband. "Come on." Harvey's words brought her out of her daze. "What?" "Come on, dinner. Since you brought it, you'll have to eat it." Her spouse, smiling, sat down at the table, showing readiness to eat. Celine looked at her bag. No dinner was in it, naturally. "Forgot it at home, I think," she muttered confusedly. "Listen, are you all right? Maybe you should see a doctor. It seems to me you with your students and notebooks completely brought yourself." "Oh, okay. I'll put the papers away, turn off the laptop, and we'll go home. Wait a minute. They rode in the car in silence. Selena repented for her rash act and thought that she would never behave like that again. No matter what happened, everything that had happened tonight seemed like a plot from a bad love show, and she was the main character. She should have had her husband followed. At home, Selena took the cutlets out of the refrigerator, quickly heated them, put them on the table, and pushed a plate of salad to her husband. "Do you want tea?" she asked when Harvey had finished almost everything. "No, I'm going to shower and go to bed." Selena couldn't sleep for a long time. She kept wondering what was going on. Why she, so calm and reasonable, suddenly behaved like this. Why she stopped trusting her husband. Was it because of the word sweetheart she'd heard Harvey say on the phone? Well, there's no telling who he might have said it to. Maybe it was a joking reference that meant nothing to him but made her lose her mind. You can't live like this. It's not good for the family and it's not good for the relationship. Let things go on as they are. Let things stay the way they are. Harvey never noticed Selena's new hairstyle. After graduation, Selena and Harvey got married. The wedding was played in their hometown so that all relatives and friends could come. Parents of the bride and groom were not wealthy people, but the wedding for the young tried to make no worse than people. 50 people invited had fun until deep into the night. Each new toast made the bride and groom rise from the table, and shouts of bitterly kiss under the loud counting of guests. 1, 2, 3, 15. Live happily ever after, and we'll help you as much as we can, Selena's father said. Yes, and give us more grandchildren as soon as possible, her mother added. In order to have their own place, Selena's parents sold her grandmother's apartment, and Harvey's parents added the necessary amount. The money was used to buy a house in the city where the bride and groom graduated from college. From the first days, they began to live independently. Selena was employed in a secondary school as a teacher of language and literature. Harvey worked for several years as an economist in one company and after gaining experience, opened his own firm. Everything was going well with the young family, did not work out only with children. First time Selena very much wanted to give birth, but it was not possible to get pregnant. Her husband supported her, but did not show much desire to have a son or daughter. It is necessary to live for themselves, he said, to get on their feet, to buy a more spacious house. And if the children will go, all consider, neither go on vacation, nor buy a new apartment will not get. People live somehow, Selena answered. They have children, and they have enough for everything else. What they have enough for? Bread and butter, that's all. And some people don't even have enough for butter, because children need to be clothed and fed. Harvey was always sure that offspring slowed down the process of increasing the family's wealth. But you and I have everything, tried to persuade Selena. A good job, an apartment. That's enough. Every time stop talking about children, Harvey. When the time comes, we'll have sons and daughters. But for now, we need to earn money and save up to improve living conditions. However, Selena was quite satisfied with her living conditions. Their 2-room apartment could accommodate them and at least 2 children. But in order not to aggravate the situation in the family, she agreed with her husband. After all, she has 25 kids in her class, and she's the cool mom for them. Everyone needs supervision, who needs help, who needs guidance, who needs to go home to talk to their parents. So and lived almost 20 years without heirs. And now it seemed too late. Sometimes Selena thought, if they had children, everything would be different. Her husband would be rushing home to play with their son. She would be checking homework. On weekends, they would go to amusement rides or walk in the park. And why is he so categorical? Because he himself grew up in a large family with brothers and sisters. Selena banished sad thoughts and occupied herself with work. Harvey came home from work on time. Selena was just finishing cooking dinner. "Hi, I'm home," he shouted from the hallway. "Wash your hands. We're about to have dinner." All day, the woman thought about how to return the former intimacy with her husband. She found only one option: common leisure time. So she watched movies on the internet and found a new detective. They used to be very fond of watching movies together, comfortably seated on the sofa in the living room. "I found an interesting movie. Maybe we should watch it tonight," she asked Harvey. "I'm very tired," he said, not lifting his eyes from his plate. "Too bad, and I just did not take home notebooks. All at school had time to check everything." "I'm sorry." Harvey got up from the table and headed for the bedroom. Selena cleaned up and washed the dishes. Gotta load the laundry in the washer, she thought. The woman tiptoed into the bedroom where her husband was resting, gathered his things, and headed for the bathroom. As she loaded the laundry, she checked her pockets. She always did that. There was no telling what might be in them. Unexpectedly, Selena brought her husband's shirt up to her face. The garment smelled of a feminine perfume she certainly didn't use. Frantically straightening the shirt, she found a lipstick mark on the collar. It was bright pink. Another woman after all. Her heart raced. Selena had almost calmed down and was beginning to think that all her suspicions were unfounded and insulting, both to her husband and herself. And then there was the lipstick. It obviously couldn't have gotten on her shirt by itself. She crouched on the edge of the tub. Again and again, her imagination treacherously painted a picture of adultery. Her husband had a woman who wore lipstick in such a gaudy color. It wasn't like him, but the fact remained. He's cheating on her. What is this? A serious relationship or a meaningless fling? Whether she's a grown woman or a young woman who preys on other men's husbands, Harvey isn't old yet and could very well attract the attention of a woman of any age. I wonder how long he's been cheating on her. Kathy, we need to meet. Do you have time? Come over. I'm home, replied her friend. Kathy fought with the children. They ate, left the table, went to their room to do their homework, she said in a menacing tone. Anthony and Angelica reluctantly removed themselves from the kitchen. Katie began to clear the table. Sit down. Why are you standing there? I'll put the kettle on, she said, putting the dishes in the sink. Selena sat down on a stool. She didn't know where to start, and in general, whether it was right to come to her friend with her problem. She had a lot of things to do with the kids in the household, and she was bothering her. Finally, cups with tea and cookies in a nice vase made of ordinary glass appear on the table. Tell me about it, friend. Katie prepared to listen to Selena. I found lipstick on his shirt, the woman exhaled. Katie stirred slowly with a spoon in her cup. Without raising her eyes to her friend, she said, It was to be expected. Why this? First the lipstick, then the phone calls and the silence on the receiver, then the suitcase of belongings and the slammed door. It's always the same pattern with them. What pattern, Katie? What are you talking about? Selena exclaimed. The usual? Look, he meets a woman, they have sex, he likes it, and he wants to meet again. And then another and another. He can't leave his family just because he likes sleeping with another woman. That's why he hides, keeps a low profile, and doesn't give himself away. He might even become more attentive to you, so you don't suspect anything at all. And what does that mean? Selena asked, not understanding what her friend was getting at. Listen further. I'm an experienced divorcee, so trust me and listen carefully. Katie sipped her tea from her cup and took a bite of her cookie. If this is a simple affair, he will hide it very carefully. He may not even have any serious relationship with this girl in his plans. What are you looking at? What else do you call her? Maybe he's not planning on leaving home at all. Well, the sharpness of sensations man wanted, bored with everything, bored with the same woman near the same bed. Psychologists call it a midlife crisis. You're Harvey's middle-aged, right? Well, Selena still didn't understand what Katie was trying to say. Well, he thinks he's gonna play around and go back to the family nest. He loves his wife, meaning you have a lot in common after all. You've been together for almost 20 years, let's say. The nasty thing about this situation, Selena, is that this new girlfriend of his has completely different plans. Katie finished her cookie. How so? He's the one who thinks their relationship is a fling, but she wants more than that. She wants to take over a normal, not sick, not sickly, quite wealthy man. You get it? Not really. Explaining for the very gifted, Katie sighed. She's not satisfied with brief encounters with a married man. She wants to marry him, so she'll do everything she can to get you to kick him out. Then he'll come to her and be only with her. Do you get it now? So she left a lipstick mark on his shirt on purpose so the wife, which is me, would notice? Well, finally. And I thought you were wooden, Selena. The woman thought for a moment. Her tea had gone cold, so Katie poured some hot tea. She felt like a teacher explaining a simple problem to an uncomprehending student. What am I supposed to do? Selena asked after a moment's silence. Nothing, Katie replied with a triumphant look. Don't be provoked. Sooner or later, he'll play and everything will go back to normal, as they say. Calm down, you friend. It happens in many families. But if you now start hysterics, arrange a showdown, hit the hammer on his male ego, he will have nothing left but to leave. Although he's probably not going to do that. Are you sure? Selena asked incredulously. Trust my experience. But you didn't fight with Archie, did you? Katie scratched the back of her head, thinking, that's not the case with me. What's different? I've got a household, kids screaming all the time, and his woman was too clingy, grabbed hold of my man and swallowed him like a rabbit. You think I should pretend like nothing's going on? Yes, you do. You're walking through a minefield right now. One wrong move and it's gonna blow up. The friends chatted some more and Selena went home. Her husband was sleeping peacefully in the bedroom. The washing machine reached the laundry, washing off the traces of treason from the collar of Harvey's shirt. Selena decided to follow her friend's advice. She really wanted to believe that her husband was not going to leave her, but the fear of being alone was stronger. At dinner, Harvey said, Selena, I'll have to leave for 2 days on a business trip. Selena couldn't remember the last time her husband had gone on a business trip. It seemed to be in the days when he had just started the firm. But then, of course, it was necessary to establish contacts, to look for business partners, and now, when everything works like clockwork, why go anywhere? But the woman pulled herself together, trying to look calm, asked, Is it something serious? Yes, we will set up a new line. I have already studied the proposals of equipment suppliers, but I would like to see everything on the spot. You know how it starts later. Here is not that, there is not that. Well, we have to do it, Selena agreed with a heavy heart. The traitor bug in her head again took up the brush and began to paint pictures of adultery. Here's a husband goes with a beauty out of town and rests in some boarding house. Here they are in a hot tub. She and Harvey haven't been on vacation in years, never go anywhere. When you get there, please call me, I'll be worried, Selena said. You don't have to worry, but I'll definitely call. Don't worry. Harvey left the table and Selena was left alone with her heavy thoughts. Should I follow him? Following the man she loved seemed like the most humiliating thing she could think of. She already imagined following her husband around in black glasses and a scarf so he wouldn't recognize her. Seeing him with a young blonde woman, seeing them boarding together at the airport, and her watching him. Everything that was happening to her now was like paranoia. Selena partly understood the nonsense of what was happening, but she couldn't help it. All she wanted to do was to make sure her husband wasn't cheating on her and get some peace of mind. And now there were problems at work. Her condition was noticed by the head teacher. Selena, are you all right? She asked when she met Selena in the teacher's lounge. The school year has just started and you're so uncoordinated. You still don't have your September e-journal filled out. I'm sorry, Selena replied. I'll fill it out today. The students began to take advantage of her confused state. Seeing that the teacher does not watch them, they began to cheat, and one day, checking the notebooks with the test work, she found one in the same written options. She had to get together and make the guys rewrite, which of course, they did not like very much and caused a lot of questions from parents. Thinking about all of this, she walked slowly through the center of town. Selena didn't feel like taking the streetcar today, didn't feel like being surrounded by people. She was thinking about what was happening to her and her husband. The woman's gaze fell on a man and a woman who were walking towards her. They were about the same age as Selena and Harvey. The couple was holding hands and happiness shone in their eyes. She and her husband, on the other hand, hadn't even walked around holding hands when they were students. Harvey was not a particularly affectionate man. He preferred to show his feelings by taking care of his wife, the house, the welfare of the family. Why all the kissing, he said. Actions are the best way to tell about feelings, about the attitude to a loved one. And indeed, in all the years of her life, Selena could not complain about her husband. Yes, he did not carry her in his arms. They did not kiss on the street in full view of everyone. He did not make beautiful public gestures. But when Selena became seriously ill, he raised the whole city, found the best doctors, and did not leave her until her condition was stable. Harvey perfectly provided for the family and even in the most difficult years did everything that they did not need. He was one of those people who proved their love through deeds, not words, At first, Selena really wanted him to hug her at a corporate New Year's Eve party or kiss her on public transportation. But then she got used to his behavior and realized that the show Harvey is not peculiar, and she does not need it. Thinking about all this, she reached the mall. Suddenly, her gaze fell on a familiar car. It was Harvey's car. Selena stopped, not understanding where their car came from in the mall parking lot if her husband was on a business trip and left on a plane. Harvey came out of the mall. He was holding a beautiful young girl under his elbow, holding several colorful packages. Selena was speechless. She was numb to the sight. She wanted to shout, "Harvey, Harvey," but her tongue stuck to her mouth. Selena's husband put the girl in the car, and they drove off, and Selena was left standing still. God, how young, thought the woman, looking after the departing car. He's lying to her after all. He has a mistress. He takes her shopping and buys her beautiful things. He had lied to her, his wife, that he was away on a business trip, and he had decided to spend those 2 days with a young girl right under Selena's nose. He hadn't even bothered to leave town with her, so he wouldn't accidentally run into his wife. After recovering a little, Selena, determined to figure it all out and announced to her husband that she knew everything, dialed Harvey's phone number. "The subscriber's phone is temporarily unavailable," came the voice in the receiver. He turned off the phone so that his wife wouldn't call. He promised he'd call. But where was it? He did not care about Selena with such a young and beautiful friend. She walked on, not noticing anything around her. Her head was spinning and her eyes were dark. Selena had no control over what direction she was moving, where she was going, or how much time had passed since she had seen her husband in the company of the young beauty. She was brought out of her daze by the loud scraping of wheels on the pavement and the sound of the horn. "Are you crazy? Where are you going? Can't you see?" She heard a man's voice. Selena saw a car in front of her. A man ran out of it. "Woman, are you all right? Why are you throwing yourself under the wheels?" He began to reprimand her and suddenly stopped talking, grabbed her by the shoulders and began to shake her. "Selena? Selena? You? What's wrong with you? Look at me." Selena collapsed and fell into the stranger's arms. She fainted from the experience. She woke up in a hospital room. She felt very dizzy. The white walls floated around her. The ceiling swayed. Selena tried to get up. Lie down," she heard a woman's voice, and someone's hands laid her back on the pillow. "Where am I?" the woman asked. "You are in the hospital. You have nervous exhaustion. There was a faint, but now everything is all right. I'll get the doctor right away. Just don't get up." A young nurse ran out of the room. Celine looked around. How she had gotten here, the woman didn't understand. "Was I brought here from the street?" she thought. "How are you feeling?" the doctor asked Selena. He looked to be about 50 years old. He looked at the patient carefully. "I'm fine," Selena replied. "Take her blood pressure." He turned to the nurse. "Doctor, what's wrong with me?" the woman asked. "Apparently, you're under a lot of stress, which caused your blood pressure to spike and you fainted," the doctor replied. "The man who brought you here said you were walking down the street without noticing anything and almost got hit by his car. I'll tell you what, no matter what happens in life, you have to learn to control yourself and definitely don't go outside if you don't feel well. Otherwise, things can end badly." "A man?" Selena asked. "What man?" "I'm telling you, you almost got hit by his car. You were crossing the street in the wrong place and could have become a victim of an accident if the driver had not reacted in time and slowed down." "Where is he?" "Who?" "Ah, the driver. He's waiting in the hallway. He said he won't leave until he's sure you're okay." "Doctor, can I go home?" the patient asked. "In principle, your condition is normal. I would recommend to lie at home for a couple of 3 days. I'll write you medications, and for now, wait here." The doctor left, and a minute later a man entered the room. He pulled a chair over to the bed where Selena was lying. "Selena, hello. Well, how are you?" he asked in a painfully familiar voice. The woman gazed into the stranger's face. "Billy." She recognized him as her childhood friend. "How did you get here?" "I almost hit you with my car. It was my wheels that almost hit you," the man replied. "What happened to you? Are you not well?" "No, I'm fine." Selena tried to sit up on the bed. Billy helped her. Billy was her longtime friend and classmate. They lived in the same yard and their parents were friends. For as long as Selena could remember, Billy had always been there for her. On holidays, her and Billy's parents would get together at one of their houses, set up a big, beautiful table, and her friend's dad would pull out an accordion. He was great on the instrument. The kids especially liked it when he played them songs they had learned in school. What's snow for me? What's heat for me? What's rain for me? Selena and Billy would sing to the delight of their parents. Such home concerts were a favorite pastime of both children and adults. Having grown up, the guy began to give signs of attention to Selena, but she stubbornly did not want to notice anything. "You and I are just friends. I do not want us all shouted after us bride and groom," said Selena. "What's wrong with that?" Billy objected. At the prom, the guy confessed his love to Selena, confessed it so awkwardly, so ridiculously, that the girl laughed. "What are you making up, Billy?" she said. "What love? We have to study. And when we learn, you can give me an answer. I'll wait," said the boy with hope in his voice. "Then we'll see." Selena laughed and flicked Billy on the nose. And the next day the father said to the girl, "You should take a good look at Billy. He's a serious, strong, brave guy. You can see that he treats you very well, and you've known each other for 100 years. Daddy, why are you forcing Billy on me as a groom?" "I'm not forcing anyone on you. Just Billy is a very nice guy. I like him. So love him yourself." Selena put a stop to the conversation. When the girl was preparing to leave for school, Billy came to their house. "I'm going to the army," he said. The summons came. "It's a pity," Selena suddenly said. "Pity about what?" The boy didn't understand. "Not what, but who. Pity for you. What's good in the army? They run, shoot, and it's not peaceful." "A real man should be in the army," Billy said. "That's what my father says." "It's easy for him to say. He'll never be drafted again." The girl sighed. "Selena, he's done his time. He says the army is the best school of life for a man. Will you wait for me?" He suddenly moved so close to her that a short, intermittent breath could be heard. "It's important to me." "Of course, we're friends," Selena replied. "When you get back, we'll go out and have fun." "When I get back, we'll get married," Billy said firmly. "Oh, don't be ridiculous." Selena waved her hands. All her thoughts were on her studies at the university she had so brilliantly entered. She didn't even want to think about marriage. There was so much to look forward to, a new and different student life. Billy helped Selena into the car and drove her home. "Why don't you come in?" she asked. "I'll make you some tea because you spent half the day with me and you're probably hungry." "I will," the man agreed. Selena made tea and sandwiches. Billy looked at the pictures on the mantelpiece with interest. "Is that your husband?" he asked. "Yes, Harvey. Sit down and have some tea and tell me about yourself." "There's not much to tell. I did my enlistment, stayed on contract service. Hot spot. You don't want to know about that. I came back. At first, I couldn't find myself for a long time, didn't know where to fit in. In fact, I went straight from school to the army. I don't know how to do anything but serve and fight." "How long did it take you to find yourself?" Selena asked. "I don't feel well," she answered in a calm voice. "How was the business trip?" "Fine," the husband said briefly and went to the bathroom. "Will you prepare something to eat?" "Yes, of course," Selena thought wryly. Mistresses are definitely not in the kitchen. They have other duties. Well settled, home cooked, feathers brushed and back to lovemaking, she thought. The woman felt anger begin to boil up in her again. She tried to pull herself together and calm down. Looking at Harvey eating salad, she thought, "He's hungry, poor man. It's not easy to play the role of Don Juan." She asked, "Have you forgotten that in 2 weeks we have a wedding anniversary?" "Of course I have not forgotten, my dear," replied her husband. The word darling made her shudder. What a liar. He has the nerve. His young woman was his favorite, and she was his darling. She clutched the knife with which she was cutting the bread. Selena didn't know who she was more angry with. On the one hand, it was her husband's fault for having a young mistress. On the other hand, that this girl doesn't have enough free men. Of course, to get a successful man, you must first marry a penniless student, go through all the difficulties with him. And then, when it's time to enjoy a quiet, hassle-free life, they come like this and take the place of a wife, who has always been a reliable rear guard, always, even when it was very difficult. Selena suddenly remembered how difficult it had been for Harvey to develop his business. At first, there wasn't enough startup capital. Selena's father sold the car, and Harvey's parents parted with the cottage that they loved so much and that fed them. They grew their own potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and vegetables on their country plot, and then saved money on trips to the vegetable store all winter. She remembered how Harvey had been short of money for equipment and had had to ask for financial help at work. The principal had gone along with it and given her the money she needed as a young professional. It was like a raise. She remembered when Harvey's mom had gotten sick. Selena then took a leave of absence at her own expense and was with her for a month, supporting her, nursing her, giving her medication by the hour. All this is the fate of wives. Mistresses only the joys of life, trips, shopping. I wonder what jewelry Harvey's already given her. Selena, can you hear me? Her thoughts were interrupted by her husband's voice. What? I said, how are we going to celebrate? Have you thought about it? She had. She didn't care about the anniversary at all. She was just asking to see if her husband remembered their most important holiday together. All she'd been thinking about the last few days was where her husband's love affairs would lead. Would he leave or would he stay and leave his mistress? And whether she would be able to forgive him for cheating. Would she be able to pretend that nothing had happened and that she hadn't seen Harvey with a young, beautiful girl at the mall? A mixed feeling of resentment and squeamishness at the same time kept Selena on her toes. How in such a state could she think about the celebration, plan such an important event, invite guests, coordinate the menu in the restaurant? Maybe we won't celebrate at all. Well, 20 and 20. Harvey came to his wife, put his arm around her shoulders. What's going on with you? Something happened that I don't know. Tell me, honey, we always knew how to support each other. Are you nervous about the anniversary? Let me get my assistant to do all the organizing. She'll take care of everything, and you'll have more time to yourself. His words echoed in the distance. She pulled away from his embrace, stepped back to the window. Harvey, tell me, do you still love me? Selena asked. What a question. Of course I love you. You are the only one I have, the best, the most caring, the most faithful. Yes, I am, but you are, thought the woman. How dodgy his lies are. Again and again a wave of anger and despair came over her. It seemed to be too much to handle, but Selena pulled herself together. I'll organize everything. Don't worry, don't need an assistant. We'll book the same restaurant as last year's anniversary. I liked it there, cozy and good cuisine. I'll email the invitations. That's great. Harvey smiled and went into the bedroom. As she cleared the dishes from the table, she thought of Billy for some reason. She wanted to be near him, to talk to him, maybe even complain to him. Selena suddenly felt so exhausted, weak, defenseless. It's one thing to learn about other men's cheating, to sympathize with women, to scold men with different words. It's quite another to have your own tragedy. And for Selena, the situation in which she found herself was exactly a tragedy, a misfortune that suddenly fell on her so prosperous family. She spent the rest of the week worrying about wedding anniversary preparations. 20 years together is a decent amount of time for two people to become not just close, they become kin, an inseparable part of one whole. Harvey was still busy at work. He returned late, ate, and went to bed. Communication between the couple was reduced to short questions and answers. Will you have dinner? How are things at work? Good night. Selena had already forgotten when she and Harvey had been intimate. The young hottie must have been taking all of her husband's energy. No matter how hard she tried to banish the sad thoughts from her mind, they were bound to reappear again and again. Going through the things in her closet, Selena found a small box draped in blue velvet on her husband's shelf. A gift, she thought. Curiosity was irresistibly drawn to open it and see what was inside. I'll take a look and put it back. Pretend it's a surprise to me. Celine opened the case. Inside was a gold ring. The woman's heart felt so warm, her husband had taken care of it in advance and bought a gift for her. The ring was beautiful, elegant, just the way Selena liked it. Ah, how well Harvey knows her taste, how well he knows how to choose jewelry. After admiring it, she put the box away and covered it with her things. The restaurant was booked for 40 people. Selena and Harvey's parents were to come. Katie was sure to come, and mostly among the guests were colleagues and friends of her husband. On the day of the anniversary, the woman went to a friend's hair salon to get her hair done. "Look, the fact that you're celebrating a China wedding with such magnitude is a good sign," Kathy said. "It shows that Harvey isn't going to change anything in his life. He's keeping his family together, and his affair is basically meaningless." "Are you sure? Or maybe it's just a nice gesture to say goodbye." "What are you talking about? My friend even dropped her hairbrush from her hands. Why do you only think about bad things?" A gloomy, perpetually depressed wife is unlikely to like her husband as much as a cheerful mistress. So you must be cheerful, at least in public. "I'll try," Celine assured her. The noisy guests gathered around the table. Waiters were darting back and forth, serving dishes and hors d'oeuvres. Harvey looked pleased and happy. Selena did her best to match, smiling welcomingly at everyone. "I want to raise this glass to my beloved wife, my faithful friend, with whom we have been together for 20 years, Harvey stood up and turned to Selena. "From the first days of our acquaintance, you became for me the person with whom it is not terrible to go through life, who will not betray and will not turn away in a difficult moment. We have gone through a lot with you, and now we can enjoy a happy and peaceful life. Here's to you, darling." Harvey took her hand, kissed it. The guests clapped their hands, raised toasts. Selena felt joy. The general mood and the atmosphere did its job. She forgot about everything that tormented her so much the last few days. Her husband gestured to the waiter, who brought a red velvet case on a tray. Harvey took it and held it out to his wife. "This is for you, my dear," he said. Without hiding her surprise, Selena opened the box. Inside was a jewelry set, a pearl necklace and earrings. The woman was dumbfounded. "What is it?" she asked. "It's a gift for our 20th anniversary," Harvey replied, smiling broadly. The guests clapped in delight, and Selena stood staring at the jewelry. She had expected to receive the ring she had found on her husband's shelf in the closet, but this was a very different gift. "Who is that ring for then?" she thought. "Is it for a young mistress?" Overcome with confusion, Selena said, "Thank you, darling. It's very beautiful." Harvey asked her to dance. His hands on her waist were so gentle and warm that Selena was ready to dissolve. There was nothing but the two of them. This was their celebration. She forgot about all the troubles and just moved to the beat of her husband's movements. "You are simply charming today," Harvey whispered in her ear. Selena melted from his words and hugs. The guests danced, ate, drank, and cheered for the couple. Between toasts, Selena and Harvey received gifts in beautiful colored boxes. The anniversary was a success. It couldn't have gone any better. "Let's go brush your feathers, girlfriend," Katie called out. The women went to the ladies' room to fix their makeup. "So, how are you?" Katie asked Selena. "You know, it's like being back 20 years ago on our wedding day," she replied. "Remember, the factory cafeteria, decorated with balloons. Instead of a luxurious presidium of the bride and groom, as they do now, a poster written by our hands, advice and love. It was so simple, but so heartwarming. Now, the setting is certainly more inviting, but the atmosphere is reminiscent of what we had at our wedding. That's great. Everything will be fine, and crises happen in every family. I wish you happiness, darling." Katie hugged her friend. "Thank you," Selena replied. "I'll go look for Colia." She walked through the hall, but her husband was nowhere to be found. "Daddy, have you seen Harvey?" she asked her father. "Out on the terrace, I think," the man replied. Selena followed in the direction of the open terrace. As she got closer, she heard Harvey talking to someone on the phone. The woman did not immediately make out the essence of the conversation, heard only fragments of phrases, among which clearly sounded, "Everything will be fine, do not miss, tomorrow we go to buy a house." The husband saw Selena and disconnected the phone. "Harvey, what are you doing here?" Selena asked. "I went out for some fresh air," the man answered. "You lost me? Let's go to the hall, it's cooler here." He took his wife by the hand, drawing her inside the room. "Who were you talking to?" Harvey didn't look her in the eye, just pulled her along. The words "buying a house," "don't miss me," "let's go buy a house" were hammering in Selena's head. Everything swam in front of her eyes. The sounds became distant, as if from somewhere far away. Selena lost consciousness. When she came to, Katie, Harvey, and her parents were leaning over her. "Honey, are you feeling better?" her husband asked. Her father held out a glass of water. "Here, drink it." "Harvey, it's too stuffy in here," he said to his son-in-law. "Yes, I think so," Selena's husband agreed. "We'll go home. Selena is very tired. She needs to rest." In the car, they drove in silence. When they entered the bedroom, Selena collapsed into bed without even undressing and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, her husband wasn't there. There were smells of food coming from the kitchen. Harvey was cooking something, but she didn't feel like eating. "Your advice isn't working, Katie," Selena told her friend. The sick leave wasn't closed yet. Selena decided to visit her friend to discuss the events of the last few days. They set up in the back room where no one would disturb the conversation. Katie was making tea in silence. "I put up with it. I do as you say. I don't shout. I don't fight. I don't tell Harvey I saw him with his mistress. I don't pack up his things and throw them out the door. That's what any woman would do if she found out her husband was cheating on her." "Not any, but only stupid," quietly replied her friend. "And you think it is better to be smart, but humiliated, deceived, betrayed." "His adultery is not proven," Katie said in a lawyer's tone. "What are you, his defense attorney now?" Selena was furious. "In my opinion, he doesn't need one. He's perfectly happy living a double life. I found a ring in his things before the anniversary, and I was naive, thinking he'd given it to me as a present. Turns out he didn't. So who was it for? His mistress? What more proof do you need? Tell me." "Calm down. You're going to make such a mess. I don't care if he's buying jewelry for her and hiding it in our house. It must be serious. That's why he couldn't leave the ring at the office. I wouldn't have found it there. Drink your tea. Let me think." Katie moved the cup. "There's nothing to think about," Selena persisted. "I need to gather my strength and have a serious talk with Harvey. Tell him that I know everything. Let him choose who is more important to him. If he wants a younger woman, let him get out of our house and live with her. What will you accomplish? Become a divorcee with no kids and a schoolteacher's salary?" Katie looked at her friend carefully. "You can only save a marriage if you act with logic and calculation. And you want to keep Harvey, don't you?" "I don't know what I want. I guess I want this whole nightmare to stop." Selena sipped her tea, thought for a moment, and continued. "I'll tell you more. I heard him talking on the phone. He was saying he was going to go buy her a house tomorrow. Can you believe it? And it's not a ring or anything. It's a house where she can live and he can come over and have fun with her. This is getting way out of line. Is it normal to live in two houses?" Selena was getting more and more agitated. She clearly envisioned a picture of her husband sleeping in their bedroom or in the house bought for his mistress. "That's not normal," Katie replied calmly. "Are you sure it was her he was talking to?" "Who else?" "Don't be bored," he said. "We're going to buy a house for you tomorrow. She's bored, you see." "Yes, you're right. I think it's time to do something." Katie thought about it. The situation in her friend's life was ambiguous. Her divorce had been easier. Her husband had just up and left her for another woman. He didn't cheat on her. He didn't hide the relationship. He didn't hide jewelry, and he didn't give her such lavish gifts. At least he was honest with her. And Harvey's being the ultimate liar. He lives with her friend, eats what she cooked every day, sleeps in the same bed, and himself goes to the side. On the other hand, we can't let this young wench finally get him. If he left, Selena would be completely sour, maybe even depressed. And her health has been failing lately, nerves apparently. It was easier for Katie. She had 2 kids to look after. They keep her on her toes, keep her in the mood. Selena would be alone, all alone. It was hard for Katie to imagine what would happen to her friend if Harvey packed a suitcase and left her. "There's a way out that will work for you," Katie finally said. "What's that?" "We have to eliminate that young woman." Selena stared at her friend in confusion. "Eliminate her once and for all. She'd be gone. Then Harvey would eventually forget her and everything would fall into place." "Eliminate her how? Kill her?" Selena had a look of horror in her eyes. "Oh, don't just kill her. There are other ways to get rid of her." "Like what?" In Selena's head, one after another different options, but none of them could be executed legally. First of all, we have to find out who she is, what she does for a living. We don't know anything about her at all. That's why we don't understand how to fight with the separator. Katie refilled the tea in her friend's cup. How do we know anything about her? Selena asked. I think we should ask Billy for help. He's a cop, and he still loves you and won't say no. It's awkward, Selena said uncertainly. Is it convenient to live with a husband who will be stolen by a young girl? The argument was the only and exhaustive one. Selena decided to meet Billy. Somewhere in her purse was his business card. She found and pulled out the card, staring at it for a long time, deciding to call her childhood friend. Hello, Billy. They met in the park by the pond. Billy was in uniform. His tunic suited him very well, made him look austere. Hello, it's good to see you, the man said, putting his arm around Selena. I didn't even hope you'd call. Hello, it's good to see you too. I need your help. Of course I will, if I can. After returning from the hot spot, Billy realized that he had lost forever the girl he had loved practically since childhood. Trying to come to terms with this, he married the first woman he met. He had no special love for his young wife. He just realized that one would go crazy with jealousy and worry. For a while, he even started drinking. But even in his altered consciousness, the image of Selena invariably appeared. Billy's marriage collapsed in less than a year. He realized that no other woman could replace the one he had asked to wait for him from the army. Billy began to gather information about Selena's life, actually followed everything that was going on with her, where she went, where she worked, learned everything about her husband. Disappointment increased when the man realized that Selena's marriage is solid, her husband is reliable, and she is quite happy, but hoped to return his beloved. He did not lose hope. True, Billy didn't know how to show up in Selena's life, how to make himself known. He realized that she had long forgotten about him, and those rare letters that he received from her, being in the army, only a tribute to childhood friendship, and nothing more. That unexpected meeting, when Selena almost fell under the wheels of his car, indeed, was an accident, but that accident had turned his life upside down. From his conversation with his childhood friend, from her sad look, he realized that not everything was as good in her personal life with her husband as it might seem at first glance. Billy had hoped that Selena would be with him, but it had been several weeks. She hadn't even called to just chat, and he realized that the time hadn't come yet. And then suddenly, this unexpected call from Selena asking him to meet. What's wrong? What can I do for you? He asked her sympathetically, taking Selena's hand. You see, I don't feel comfortable telling you about it. It's too personal. But we're friends, and we've known each other for 1,000 years. You can trust me completely. My husband is cheating on me, Selena said with difficulty, lowering her eyes. Oh no, it's all for nothing. I shouldn't have come to you. I'm so ashamed. Why should you be ashamed? The man asked. After all, it's not you who's cheating, but he's cheating on you. But it's so humiliating. You see, we've been together for 20 years. We just celebrated our anniversary. And just recently, I found out that he has a young girl and he's going to buy her a house. The day you almost hit me, or rather, when I almost got hit by your car, I saw them together. I felt sick. They were laughing merrily as they left the mall to go shopping, and my husband told me he was on a business trip. And then I found the ring in his closet, and it wasn't meant for me. That's not nice, Billy said. But what can I do for you? He looked troubled by the unhappiness in his childhood friend's life, but in his heart, he was glad that her marriage was falling apart and that he had a chance. See, I want you to find out about this girl. You can do that, can't you? You're a cop. Selena, I can. I'll find out about her. But what good will that do you? Don't you think you'll suffer more if you get the information? Maybe we should just part ways quietly and peacefully now that he's found someone else. No, you don't understand. It's obvious from his demeanor that he's not going to leave home. But I know Harvey's still seeing this girl. I want to know everything about her so I can understand how she's better than me, how she got him, why he's so attracted to her. I wanted to dump her. A slight sadness and disappointment began to brew in Billy's heart, and he, the fool, thought there was a chance Selena would leave her cheating husband and be with him forever. He wondered. Selena waited silently for Billy's answer. A fine, unpleasant rain drizzled down. Let's go to the car. I'll give you a ride home, the man said. They headed toward the car lot. Stopping in front of Selena's house, Billy said, You know, Selena, I'm not sure if you're doing the right thing. Cheating is cheating. A man who cheats once will cheat all his life. Are you willing to live a lie? Have you no self-respect? She looked him in the eye. Just find out everything about this girl for me, Selena asked quietly. I will. I'll see you later. Okay, bye. I can't talk. Selena heard her husband's voice as she entered the hallway. He was talking to someone on the phone and abruptly cut the conversation short when he heard his wife come in. How he himself is not disgusted with hiding, whispering, hiding all the time, and in front of me put on the mask of a caring husband, thought the woman. Hi, you're here. And I already lost you. I wanted to call you. Aha, wanted to call me and called her. She understood everything, but continued to pretend to be in the dark about her husband's adventures. I fried some potatoes. Do you want some? Harvey asked. No, I'm not hungry. Kathy came in. They had tea. Selena went into the bedroom to change. I have a surprise for you. She heard her husband's voice coming from the kitchen. Another one? Haven't we had enough surprises? Selena silently put on her house robe, slipping her feet into her slippers. She stepped into the kitchen where her husband was setting the table. Which one was it? Selena couldn't hold back a wry grin. We've started the new line. There was a commission today, and everything went well. Production is expanding. The technologists easily mastered the equipment. Now I can exhale a little, and you and I together can go on a small vacation. Harvey smiled. It seems that he was in a very good mood. It had been a long time since Selena and her husband had been on vacation. The last time they had gone on a seaside trip was about 5 years ago after Harvey's mom had gone on the mend after her illness. Selena remembered what a great vacation they had had then, walking along the coast, enjoying the sea breeze and the gentle sunshine. They were happy, making big plans for the future. Could it all happen again after what he'd done? After he cheated on her and continues to date another girl. Choose any tour you want. I'll pay for everything. Harvey handed his wife a travel agency catalog. As Selena, now we can even afford expensive resorts. I think we'll be able to go on vacation every year. I wonder what kind of tour you offered your mistress, thought Selena, leafing through the pages of the catalog. The bright, alluring scenery promised a great vacation, but she can't banish thoughts of infidelity, so she's unlikely to be able to relax next to the man she loved so much and who's cheating on her. When are you planning the trip? She asked her husband. I think I can be completely free in a week. Of course, I'll have to stay in touch with the firm, but otherwise I'll be completely at your disposal. Harvey was enthusiastically arranging the cups on the table. Completely at my disposal. And a connection to the firm is a connection to a mistress. The intrusive thoughts of her husband's infidelity never left Selena. We both need a vacation, Harvey continued. You haven't looked or felt well lately. Here we'll get some proper rest, come home, and go into battle with renewed vigor. Well, here we are. He's already telling me to my face that I look disgusting, insinuating that I'm sick like an old woman. Selena's mood was deteriorating by the minute. She slammed the catalog shut. I can't leave right now. I have school. The fall break is coming up soon, as I recall. Why don't you come back from vacation a couple days later? Take some time off. And in general, Selena, I've been telling you for a long time, quit this nerve-wracking job. You'll leave your health at school. Enough. Selena interrupted him sharply. She was tired of hearing about how bad she looked and what health problems she had. The young mistress clearly had everything well with her looks, and she probably didn't have any diseases. That's enough. I'm not going anywhere. You want to go by yourself, or find yourself some more fun company. She got up from the table and walked out of the kitchen. There were tears in her eyes. There were tears of helplessness. Can't he see that she knows everything, understands everything? How long could this circus go on? This endless clowning, where her husband is the main clown, and she is the audience fooled by him. Selena locked herself in the bathroom and cried quietly. She was very hurt, bitter, and resentful. Billy called 2 days later. Hi, I packed some stuff. Can we meet? He asked. Sure, let's go to the same place after work, Selena suggested. The weather was perfect today, and there was nothing to prevent a quiet conversation. There were moms with strollers strolling leisurely through the alleys, and babies playing on the playground. Billy noticed that Selena was watching them carefully with a kind of genuine envy. I'm sorry, why don't you have children? He asked suddenly. It just didn't happen, answered her friend. First, the household settled, then both made a career, and now it's too late. You're still young. Billy began to comfort Selena. Oh, come on, I'm young. Why don't you tell me what you found out? Listen, the girl's young. It's no secret to me, Selena interrupted impatiently. Don't interrupt me. Billy looked at her sternly. She's 20 years old, name's Ariana. A year ago, she came from the region where she lived with her mother. She was born there in the village. Later, she and her mother moved to the district center. Her mother works as a librarian and has a higher education. By the way, she studied here in this city, but did not graduate from the university because she got married or had a child. That's not very accurate. Billy, I don't want to hear about her mom. Let's talk about the girl. Where did she come from? How did she end up as my husband's mistress? Selena couldn't wait to get all the information. Well, this Ariana moved to the city a year ago to go to college. She failed her exams. Now she's unemployed, lives in a rented apartment, which apparently my husband rents for her, Selena thought. Practically never goes anywhere except for the occasional meeting with your husband. He usually drives himself to her apartment. Sometimes they go to coffee shops, go to the mall. We recently went to a real estate agent and then drove out to the suburbs with a realtor to look at a house. And what's a good house? Selena was curious what kind of place her husband had splurged on. I don't know. It's not rich, but it's nice. It's a good place to move in and live. Look, these are the pictures. I've got an employee to follow them. It's not much, but the general picture is clear. Selena took the pictures in her hands. Here is Harvey putting the girl in the car. Here they are sitting in a cafe. Here they are looking at a red brick house outside the city. And yes, Selena, what a surprise. Yesterday they were at the registry office. Billy looked at Selena, studying her reaction to his words. At the registry office? What were they doing there? There was no way to find out. The civil registry office agreed to give information only upon an official request, which, as you realize, I don't have. Such a paper can only be obtained within the framework of a criminal case. And since there's no case, my superiors won't give me a request. I see, or rather nothing is clear, Selena thought out loud. Selena, let's go to a cafe and have coffee. Billy's suggestion brought her out of a light stupor. She pondered the information she had received from her childhood friend. Let's go, Selena agreed. She had a new idea on how to get rid of her husband's mistress. The cafe was warm. Billy helped Selena take off her coat, hung it on the rack, pulled up a chair. He ordered coffee and pastries. The woman stared thoughtfully out the window. She was thinking about what to do next. Billy, are you my friend? She asked suddenly. I'm more than a friend, Selena. The man took her hand. I've loved you all my life, and I never give up hope that you'll reciprocate. I'm sorry. No, don't think I'm rushing you. I've waited too long to expect you to leave your husband overnight. Billy, who told you I was going to leave my husband? But after what he's done, you can't expect to go on living with him, sleeping in the same bed with him. We've been through too much together. Well, that's fine. We've been through it. It's time to put all the good things in the past as long as they're good memories. It will be much worse if you part on a bad note with trauma in your soul. This can break you for the rest of your life. You'll be safe with me. I will never give up on you. I'll do anything to make you happy and never regret your decision for a minute. Billy seemed like he was going to talk forever, but Selena interrupted him. Billy, make this Ariana disappear, she asked insistently. Selena was surprised at how much metal was in her voice, how clear every word sounded. Disappear how? Billy didn't understand. For good or for a long time? I don't know, but the cops have their ways. There are, of course, I guess, answered the childhood friend uncertainly with a confused look. If she was gone, our life with Harvey would be fine. He looked at her, and there was so much pain in his gaze that he thought the glass in the window frames would start to crack. She loves her husband even though he cheated on her, and yet he had traded her for a young mistress. He's replaced a wife who's not as attractive and young, not as energetic. Perhaps Harvey is making plans for the future with this Ariana, even wants to have children with her, with whom the marriage did not work out. There's a reason they were looking at a house for sale, and Selena is turning a blind eye to all of this. She wants to believe that her husband will never leave her. No, it's him. Billy will never leave her. He is ready to always be there for her, and her husband is a real cheat and a cheater. It was impossible in the man's mind how one could continue to love a man who blatantly cheats on his wife. He would fulfill any of Selena's requests if it would bring her peace of mind, but he would not allow a happy life with a cheating husband. He will rid his beloved of both her rival and her husband. That was Billy's decision that day. Selena came home late at night. Billy gave her a ride, promising that he would arrange everything. Harvey was at home watching television. When the woman came into the living room, he pressed the remote. The screen went blank. "Selena, we need to talk to you," he began. "No way, that's it, the wheel is running. We'll talk to you when you stop running left," Selena thought to herself. "I don't want to talk, I'm tired." She cut him off and headed for the bathroom. "Selena, it's important. I have something very important to tell you," her husband kept insisting. But Selena was adamant. She didn't want any arguments right now. The woman understood what Harvey wanted to talk about. "Now we'll begin to tell. Say so happened. I met another woman, understand, sorry. Not yet time to talk about it. When this shit's gone, then we can talk about it. Let him admit his mistake, repent, and Selena will forgive him. Please leave me alone. I have a headache and all I want to do right now is go to bed," Selena said. After taking a shower, she closed herself off in the bedroom, leaving her husband alone in the living room. Harvey didn't understand what was going on with his wife, but he could see that something fishy was going on. "I wonder where she disappears in the evenings. School is over," he thought, lying down on the living room couch and covering himself with a blanket. But he absolutely had to talk to her. Selena is the closest person to him, and he had an incredible event in his life that he should tell her about. She would calm down and then he could get back to talking. She would understand. He has a kind and understanding wife. With these thoughts, Harvey fell into a deep sleep. Billy had carefully thought out the operation. He didn't have the sanction, but he had some opportunities, which he planned to use for his own purposes. More precisely, for the purposes that would help him get rid of Selena's husband and his mistress. He enlisted 2 members of his department to carry out the operation. The guys are loyal, responsible, not a lot of words. At the right moment, they will definitely not fail, and the boss will say what he will allow them to say. The city center was crowded. Harvey's car stopped at a shopping center. A man helped a young, pretty girl in a bright yellow coat out. They headed down the steps toward the entrance. "Attention, we will be taking when they leave the mall. Grab as soon as they open the car doors," Billy commanded his subordinates. They waited for about half an hour. Finally, Harvey and Ariana appeared in the doorway. They laughed and walked leisurely down the steps, walking toward the car. As soon as the girl loaded the shopping bags into the back seat of the car, 2 officers appeared beside her and Harvey. They showed their IDs in order to present the things for inspection. "What's going on?" The man and the girl stood with their hands on the hood of the car while the officers searched the car. Suddenly, a bag of white powder appeared in front of Harvey's face, and the major waved it in front of the man's nose. "Is this yours?" he asked. "What is it?" Harvey didn't understand. "I'm asking you, what is it, and is it yours?" "Bring in witnesses," Billy ordered the officers. "Attention witnesses, in the car of this man and girl was found a bag of white powder, presumably a drug. Can everybody see it?" The witnesses nodded obligingly. "Sign and you can be free," he turned to the 2 women who acted as witnesses. Harvey made a feeble attempt to break free of the officer's grip and resent them. "This is outrageous. This is not mine. Let us go," he shouted, but the police officers were already handcuffing him and his companion. Selena stayed up all night. Harvey didn't come home. Billy's cell phone didn't answer. Finally, in the morning, the receiver sounded a shrill tune, waking the woman dozing on the living room couch. "Hello, Selena. I'm all done. Come over." "I will," a male voice answered briefly. Billy appeared on the doorstep with a bouquet of roses. "These are for you," he said, holding out the flowers to Selena. "What's this about, Billy?" She tried to refuse the gift. "Come on in, Tony. I got them both locked up for drug possession. Now you can be calm, and if you want, happy." Selena gawked at the man who stood in front of her with a bouquet in his hands. "Are you out of your mind? For what drugs?" she exclaimed. "I asked you to get rid of the girl. Why did you arrest Harvey? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He cheated on you. He caused you so much pain and misery. He hurt you, and I won't let anyone hurt you. I love you. I love you all my life. I'd do anything for you. Release Harvey at once, do you hear me? The woman demanded it. But why? Nothing and no one can stop you from being happy now. I can't be happy without Kolya. He's my husband. I love him. Selena flopped down on the sofa and burst into tears. Watching the woman he loved crying was beyond Billy's strength. He sat down next to her doomly. I wish I knew if he loved you. Arrange a meeting with him, Selena said, wiping away her tears. I want to talk to him. Okay, I haven't made a case yet. They're being held until they find out, so I can arrange a short meeting for you. But promise me you'll be reasonable. You'll be guided by logic and reason, not emotion. They drove to the station together. The interrogation room was dark. The bars on the small window under the ceiling created an oppressive atmosphere. The door to the room rattled open. A handcuffed Harvey was led in by a police officer, ordered to sit across from Selena, and walked out. Hello, Selena, Harvey said quietly. Hello, how are you? She asked, not knowing where to start the conversation. I don't know. I don't understand where these drugs came from. Harvey, I know everything, she interrupted her husband. I know everything about you and your young mistress. What are you talking about? I don't have and never had a mistress, Harvey exclaimed. Don't lie, you're dating a young girl named Ariana. You buy her jewelry and clothes at the mall. You're even going to buy her a house. Selena looked triumphantly at her husband. Let her justify herself now. The man exhaled, squaring his shoulders. I tried to tell you everything, but you wouldn't listen. Ariane is my daughter. Selena's eyebrows rose. This was a turn of events she hadn't expected. How could her husband, with whom they'd been living together for 20 years, have a daughter? She was born before you and I were married. I had a fling with her mom back in college. Then I did the dastardly thing. I gave her money and told her to get an abortion. But she kept the girl, raised her. And a year ago, Ariana came to our town to enroll, and she tracked me down. That's my daughter, you know? Harvey looked at his wife with bitterness. She didn't get in last year, but she didn't want to leave town. I got her an apartment, helped her out any way I could. I'd never given a dime of money to raise her before. I didn't even know she existed. I planned to eventually get her a job at a firm so she could earn money and get some experience. And the house, it's not such a cool house, just a place to live so she wouldn't have to pay rent. After all, my daughter shouldn't have to live on the streets. Why didn't you tell me you had a daughter? You wouldn't understand. I didn't know. Her mother raised the girl on her own. She never showed up in my life, never called or asked for money. When Ariana turned 18, her mother told her about me, and the girl wanted to find me. I guess it's normal to want to see and get to know your father, don't you think? Selena was shocked. She was silent, not knowing what to say. She had put her husband and his daughter behind bars with her own hands. Consumed by her jealousy, she didn't even try to figure it out, didn't want to hear him when he tried to tell her everything. Selena, Ariane is a very good girl. She's hardworking, inquisitive. Yeah, she didn't grow up as well off as we did. That's why I tried to do something nice for her. And that ring I found in your closet, is that for her too? Selena asked. Well, of course, it's her 20th birthday soon, and I thought I'd give it to her. She's never had any gold jewelry at all. Why were you at the registry office? I wanted a duplicate birth certificate so I could have a document that she was my daughter. God, what have I done? Selena moaned faintly. She was ashamed to look into her husband's eyes. Billy, honey, please let them go, she begged her childhood friend. Selena, it's impossible. The wheel of justice has already spun that I took advantage of my official position, exceeded it by planting the drugs on them. Billy, please, it's not their fault. And I'm an idiot for thinking so badly of my husband. I didn't know that girl was his daughter. The man looked sadly at the woman he'd loved all his life. His plans were falling apart, but he couldn't refuse her. He couldn't see her tears and suffering. A few hours later, Harvey and Ariana were home. Selena already knew they had been released. She was preparing a delicious dinner. She would meet her husband's daughter for the first time. She may be from another woman, but she is a part of her beloved. She is his blood. Maybe they'll even become friends. No, they'll be friends. And if everything worked out well, Selena would become a kind and close friend for the girl, would help and advise her if she needed help. Selena thought about all this, moving almost automatically between the stove, refrigerator, and table. The woman's musings were interrupted by the doorbell. The doorbell rang. Selena hesitated a moment, took off her apron, and headed for the front door. Harvey stood on the threshold. He slightly motioned the pretty young girl forward. "Meet Selena. This is Ariana, my daughter."